Did you know that the undefeated samurai Miyamoto Musashi wasn't just a master swordsman, he was also a profound philosopher whose insights can reshape your life today? In this video, Master Yourself and You Will Master Your Life, Philosophy of Miyamoto Musashi, will uncover the timeless principles behind his legendary success. Emphasis on self-reliance, mental clarity, or unwavering focus, Musashi's teachings have the power to ignite real change in your mindset and daily habits. Stay with me until the end for actionable steps to apply his wisdom in your own journey, because the next step in your personal evolution might just be hidden in the words of history's greatest samurai. Number 1. Embrace self-discipline and consistency. Embracing self-discipline and consistency, as Miyamoto Musashi would urge, is more than just a suggestion, it's a path to mastering yourself. If you think about it, discipline isn't just about keeping your impulses in check. It's the quiet force that drives you when motivation is nowhere to be found. And consistency? It's the steady rhythm that keeps you moving forward, even when progress feels like it's crawling at a snail's pace. Musashi's life wasn't easy. He was no stranger to hardship, to challenges that might have broken someone with less resolve. But what made him stand out wasn't just his skill with a sword or his battlefield strategy, it was his unwavering commitment to growth. He understood something most of us miss, that greatness doesn't happen in flashes of brilliance. It's the result of showing up day after day, even when the world outside is trying to pull you in 100 directions. When Musashi talks about self-discipline, he isn't speaking from a place of abstract philosophy. He was a man who put it into action every single day. You know, it's easy to be motivated when everything is going smoothly, when you're on top of the world, feeling unstoppable. But what about on the tough days? Those days when the alarm goes off, and all you want to do is roll over and forget about your goals? That's where discipline comes in. It's about doing what needs to be done, regardless of how you feel in the moment. It's like a muscle that you build, one action at a time. And once you start strengthening that muscle, it becomes second nature. Now, consistency is a tricky one. It's not flashy, and it's not glamorous. It doesn't come with instant rewards or high fives. But consistency is where the magic happens. The key to long-term success isn't about burning bright for a few days and then fizzling out. It's the quiet persistence, the ability to stick with something even when the results aren't immediate. Musashi's approach to life was all about steady, measured progress. He wasn't in a rush, and neither should you be. The small steps you take today, no matter how insignificant they may seem, add up over time. Think about a stone carver chiseling away at a block of marble. It's not the single strike that matters, it's the countless, deliberate hits that eventually reveal the masterpiece hidden within. That's the heart of consistency. It's about showing up, putting in the effort, even when the world around you might be telling you to take a break. The truth is, consistency doesn't just build skill or results, it builds character. It teaches you patience, resilience, and the quiet power of persistence. The beauty of embracing self-discipline and consistency is that you don't need to have everything figured out. You don't need to wait for the perfect moment. You don't need to be some kind of superhuman. All you need is the willingness to keep going, even when it feels like you're not moving as fast as you'd like. That's the secret. And over time, you'll start to see the changes, not just in what you're achieving, but in who you're becoming. In the end, self-discipline and consistency are the bedrock of transformation. It's not glamorous, it's not quick, but it works. It works because it's grounded in the truth that progress is not linear. It's messy, it's uneven, and it often feels frustrating. But if you can stick to the path, as Musashi did, you'll find yourself transforming in ways you never imagined. So, next time you feel tempted to skip a day or take the easy route, just remember Musashi's lessons: stay disciplined. Stay consistent. Keep at it. The journey is worth it. Number 2. Develop a warrior mindset for resilience. When you think of Musashi, the first image that might come to mind is a legendary swordsman, poised for battle, his mind razor sharp. But Musashi wasn't just about winning duels, he was about cultivating an unshakable mindset that could withstand anything life throws your way. So, what does it mean to develop a warrior mindset? It's more than just grit. It's the ability to persevere in the face of hardship, to remain steady in the chaos, and to embrace the discomfort that comes with growth. Musashi was a master of mental toughness, and his teachings on resilience can profoundly change the way you approach life's challenges. First, let's unpack what resilience really is. It's not just about bouncing back after a setback, it's about transforming the way you respond to adversity. Musashi's philosophy teaches that obstacles are inevitable, but your response to them is what defines you. In his view, failure isn't something to fear, it's something to learn from. Every challenge you face is an opportunity to sharpen your mind, to become tougher, more adaptable, and, ultimately, stronger. In a warrior's world, there's no room for hesitation. Musashi understood that true warriors are those who don't crumble when life gets hard. Instead, they push through with clear purpose, focusing their energy where it matters most. Imagine yourself in the heat of battle, when emotions are high, and the path forward is unclear. Musashi's mindset would have you focus not on the chaos around you but on your inner calm. That stillness, even in the face of stress, is the foundation of resilience. Building a warrior mindset is also about discipline. Musashi wasn't just a swordsman, he was a student of life. He understood that true strength isn't always about physical might but about mental fortitude and the ability to stay grounded. Discipline means showing up every day, even when you don't feel like it. It's about dedicating yourself to your craft and never letting your mind wander. By focusing on the present moment, you strip away distractions and learn to maintain your concentration no matter the circumstances. This focus creates an unbreakable foundation for mental resilience. Now, let's talk about embracing discomfort. The warrior mindset is built on the idea that growth happens in the moments when things get tough, when you're out of your comfort zone. Musashi spent years honing his skills through brutal training and challenges. It's easy to imagine him standing in front of a mirror, sword in hand, facing a reflection of himself, pushing beyond what seemed possible. And that's the point, resilience isn't about avoiding difficulty, it's about diving into it, head first. The more you seek discomfort, the more you expand your capacity for handling life's toughest situations. But here's the kicker, being resilient doesn't mean being unbreakable in a rigid sense. It means being flexible, able to bend without breaking, like a tree in the wind. Musashi's philosophy encourages adaptability. Life will throw curveballs at you, and the warrior mindset teaches you to adjust, to adapt, to pivot. You don't just hunker down when things get tough, you learn to move, to outmaneuver, to find a way through the storm. At its core, the warrior mindset is about cultivating a deep inner strength. It's about developing the emotional intelligence to respond, not react. It's about understanding your limitations but pushing them, day by day, inch by inch. The true warrior knows that the fight is not always against external enemies but against internal doubts and fears. And the more you face those head-on, the more resilient you become. When you think about it, resilience isn't just about surviving, it's about thriving despite the odds. It's about tapping into that well of strength that's always been inside you. By adopting Musashi's warrior mindset, you learn to embrace adversity, not shy away from it. You build your mental toughness, your capacity for endurance, and most importantly, your ability to face life with unshakable resolve. In the end, the warrior mindset doesn't just help you face challenges, it helps you embrace them, learn from them, and emerge stronger, wiser, and more prepared for whatever lies ahead. It's the difference between being knocked down and staying down and getting back up, no matter how many times life tries to take you out. Number 3. Master the art of adaptability. Mastering the art of adaptability isn't just a skill, it's a way of life. It's about learning to move with the flow of things, like water changing its shape to fit any container. Miyamoto Musashi, the legendary swordsman, understood this better than most. To him, life wasn't a rigid series of steps you could plan out in advance. It was an unpredictable force, constantly shifting and changing, and only those who could bend and adjust would survive, let alone thrive. You see, adaptability isn't about making the right choice every single time, because honestly, no one can predict every twist and turn that life throws your way. It's about your reaction. When things go off course, and they will, it's how quickly you can shift your mindset, reevaluate, and figure out your next move that counts. Musashi lived by this principle. His ability to change tactics mid-battle, to switch gears when things weren't going his way, was legendary. That's how he survived and became the master of his craft. But adaptability goes beyond just surviving, it's about growing and learning in the process. Imagine you're faced with a new situation, one you haven't seen before. The first instinct might be to panic, to feel stuck, or to try to force things into the shape you want them to be. But that's not Musashi's way. Instead, it's about accepting where you are and using the tools available to you. Don't waste energy fighting what's already happening. Instead, focus on what you can control, what you can change in this moment to move forward. Here's the key: there's no one-size-fits-all answer to any situation. Musashi's philosophy teaches us that there's beauty in flexibility. When you stop trying to control every outcome, you can start to see new opportunities that you might have missed. And when you take a step back and stop forcing things, you can learn to recognize patterns, read situations better, and make smarter decisions. It's all about staying grounded while the world around you is in constant flux. And I know, it's not always easy. When things don't go the way you expect, it's natural to feel frustrated or even defeated. But Musashi would tell you, that's exactly the moment where adaptability comes into play. It's about taking a breath, assessing the situation from all angles, and then deciding on your next move with clarity. It's like standing still in the middle of a storm and finding a way to navigate through it without losing your calm. The beauty of this philosophy is that it applies to every area of life, not just battles or challenges. It could be something as simple as a project at work that's going off track, a relationship that's not going the way you hoped, or a personal goal that feels out of reach. When you master adaptability, you stop seeing failure as a permanent setback. Instead, you see it as information, something to learn from and use to adjust your course. So, how do you actually become adaptable in your own life? The first step is to embrace uncertainty. We all like to have things planned out, to feel secure in knowing exactly what's coming next. But Musashi would argue that true mastery comes when you learn to let go of that need for control and welcome the unknown. The more you allow yourself to be flexible, the more you'll be able to handle whatever life throws your way. Next, develop a mindset of constant learning. Musashi was always refining his skills, always open to new ways of thinking. The more you learn, the more adaptable you become. This doesn't mean you need to know everything or have all the answers, but it does mean being open to change, to evolution, and to new possibilities. Flexibility isn't about being wishy-washy, it's about being open to evolving when necessary. Finally, trust in your ability to adapt. Confidence doesn't come from knowing every outcome in advance. It comes from trusting your instincts, knowing that you can figure it out as you go along. When you master adaptability, you develop a quiet confidence that no matter what happens, you'll find a way through. It's not about avoiding the challenges or the uncertainty, it's about dancing with it, trusting that you can always shift your perspective and adjust your approach. In the end, Musashi's philosophy teaches us that life is in constant motion. To stay grounded and move forward, you have to learn to adapt. It's not about controlling every outcome, it's about mastering the art of navigating change with grace and wisdom. When you do that, you become a master of your own fate, just like Musashi. Number 4. Cultivate focus and mental clarity. When we think of focus and mental clarity, we often imagine some serene, monk-like state, where everything around us fades into the background and we can finally think without distraction. But Musashi, in his own way, had a very different take on focus. He didn't just sit around waiting for the perfect moment to clear his mind. No, for him, focus was something he cultivated through constant practice, through pushing his mind to sharpen like the blade of a sword. Now, here's the thing about focus. It's not something you can just summon when you need it. It's not some magical state that appears like a gift. Musashi knew this better than anyone. He understood that focus is a skill that demands attention, training, and, above all, discipline. Think about it for a second. Your mind is constantly bombarded with thoughts. One minute you're thinking about your work, the next, you're distracted by what's for dinner, or what happened on social media 5 minutes ago. Sound familiar? The truth is, in a world that's always pulling you in 1,000 directions, mental clarity is rare. It's easy to get swept away by the noise, whether it's your phone buzzing, the chaos around you, or the constant hum of your own thoughts. But here's the catch. Musashi would argue that this constant noise is exactly what you have to learn to ignore. To him, clarity wasn't just about emptying the mind, it was about cutting through the clutter, focusing on the task at hand, and blocking out everything that doesn't serve your purpose. Imagine your mind as a crowded marketplace, with dozens of voices shouting, pulling you in different directions. To cultivate focus, Musashi would tell you to ignore the distractions. Focus isn't about trying to force yourself to think about the task, it's about making everything else disappear. It's about creating that quiet space where only what truly matters remains. And this, my friend, takes work. The thing is, clarity doesn't come overnight. Musashi's approach was all about developing sharpness over time. He didn't expect his mind to just fall into place. Instead, he worked relentlessly to clear his mind through discipline, and that's something we can all learn from. Every small effort to stay present, to push away those distractions, is like a stroke on a canvas. Over time, you start to see a clear picture, one where your thoughts become sharper, more intentional. What does this look like in everyday life? Well, it's about being intentional with where your energy goes. When you're focusing on something, give it your full attention. Don't let your mind wander to what's next or what happened earlier. Musashi was never scattered. His attention was like a laser, fixed entirely on what he was doing, whether it was a duel or the simple act of reflection. He didn't allow his mind to be divided. And that's the key. Focus is about one thing, and one thing only. You. But here's where things get a little tricky. True focus doesn't mean you're forcing your mind to stay still. It's not about resisting distractions or fighting off the noise. It's about developing the mental agility to recognize when your mind starts to wander and gently guiding it back. Musashi didn't just have focus, he had an awareness of when he was losing it and the ability to recenter himself, always. That's mental clarity, the ability to sift through the chaos and make sense of what's truly important. It's about finding that stillness in a world that's constantly moving, making decisions not from impulse, but from a place of calm, deliberate thought. It's like a river. Sure, there might be rocks and currents, but when you learn to navigate them, you can flow with purpose. You stop getting lost in the noise and start channeling your energy where it matters most. Now, cultivating focus and clarity isn't something that just happens naturally. It's a practice. It's a habit you build, like any other skill. Musashi didn't become a master by simply hoping his mind would stay clear. He trained, honed his attention, and constantly refined his ability to stay present. And, truth be told, so can you. It starts with awareness, noticing when your mind drifts, when you're not fully engaged, and then gently pulling yourself back. In the end, focus and clarity aren't just about shutting everything else out, they're about mastering the art of being present. Musashi's life wasn't just a series of battles, it was a long, deliberate practice of sharpening his mind. And that's something we can all learn from. So, if you want to live with intention, to clear away the distractions and really focus on what matters, take a page from Musashi's book. It's a journey. But with every step, you'll find your mind getting sharper, clearer, and more powerful. Number 5. Learn to make decisive actions. When you look at Musashi, one thing stands out: his ability to make decisions with unwavering certainty. To him, hesitation was a luxury that could cost you everything. This wasn't just about fighting. Musashi's philosophy goes far beyond that. His ability to act decisively was part of his mastery of life. It's easy to get lost in indecision, to wonder whether you're making the right choice. But Musashi? He didn't overthink. He didn't second-guess himself. He understood that the key to winning, in anything, was making a move and committing to it with everything you had. Decisive actions are about cutting through the fog of uncertainty. Musashi's mindset teaches you to stop dwelling on what might happen, or what could have been. Instead, it's about trusting your instincts and having the confidence to act. When you stand at the crossroads of a decision, Musashi's philosophy tells you to take the first step. It's the kind of mindset that removes the mental clutter, the what-ifs and the fears, and leaves you with the simple truth that action, even imperfect action, is better than no action at all. This shift in thinking can be a game changer. Think about it, life is full of unknowns, right? You'll never have perfect information, and the future is always hazy. Musashi understood this better than anyone. His entire life was spent in battle, where a single hesitation could mean death. But here's the thing, this idea of decisiveness is not about rushing blindly into things. It's not about acting out of impulse or emotion. Musashi was calculated, but in a way that moved beyond analysis paralysis. He recognized that sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is just make a choice and trust yourself to adapt as you go. Musashi would argue that the fear of making the wrong decision is often what paralyzes us. We get so caught up in avoiding mistakes that we forget what's more important, learning. By making quick decisions, you open yourself up to growth. You don't wait for everything to be perfect, because life never is. You take action, you learn from it, and you improve. That's how you sharpen your judgment. It's the muscle you build by taking chances, not by sitting back and overanalyzing everything. But here's a deeper layer to decisiveness, it's about being fully committed once you make that decision. Musashi's philosophy doesn't just encourage action, it demands full engagement. When you make a decision, don't hold back. Whether it's a small step or a massive leap, give it your all. Half-hearted attempts don't get you far. You have to throw yourself into it, trust your instincts, and follow through. This complete commitment is what gives your decisions power. It's the difference between a hesitant, half-done attempt and a bold, fully executed plan. One of the things that holds most people back from making decisive actions is the fear of failure. We're taught to be cautious, to protect ourselves from making mistakes. But Musashi? He had a completely different view. In his world, failure wasn't something to avoid, it was a part of the process. When you make decisions, you do so with the understanding that not every move will work out the way you hope. That's okay. It's through failure that you find your way to success. It's through the lessons learned in moments of doubt and disappointment that you become stronger, sharper, and more effective in your decision-making. So, how do you start practicing this decisive mindset? It's simpler than it sounds. The next time you're faced with a decision, big or small, don't overthink it. Stop waiting for the perfect moment. Trust your intuition and take the first step. It's okay if you don't have every single detail figured out. Commit to the action and adapt as you go. The more you do this, the more natural it becomes. Over time, you'll notice how quickly you're able to make decisions without getting bogged down in fear or doubt. But let's not forget this key principle: decisive action doesn't mean rushing blindly into things without thought. Musashi was strategic. He considered his options carefully, then made his move. There's a balance here, a sweet spot where speed and strategy meet. The key is to trust yourself enough to act, and once you do, fully own that decision. In the end, the act of making decisive moves is a practice, a muscle you build over time. And as you do, you'll find that you not only make better decisions, you start to trust yourself more. Life becomes less about wondering what might happen and more about creating your path with confidence. That's the essence of Musashi's philosophy: to act boldly, to trust your own judgment, and to never fear the unknown. Number 6. Focus on continuous self-improvement. When you think about self-improvement, it's easy to fall into the trap of seeing it as a one-and-done kind of thing. You set a goal, work towards it, and when you finally reach it, you feel like you're done. But Musashi, he would have told you that's not how it works. In fact, the real key to growth isn't just reaching a destination, it's in the journey itself. It's about understanding that self-improvement is a lifelong process. You're never done, and that's the beauty of it. There's always room to be better, to learn, to refine, and to push yourself further. Musashi was a man who never stopped evolving. Every battle, every challenge, every encounter with a new opponent was an opportunity for him to learn something new about himself and his craft. He didn't rest on his laurels, even after achieving greatness. Instead, he was always searching for ways to sharpen his skills, expand his knowledge, and deepen his understanding. That's something we all can take to heart. Whether it's mastering a skill, improving your mindset, or building emotional strength, continuous self-improvement is what keeps you moving forward, no matter what stage of life you're in. The first step in this process is realizing that self-improvement isn't something that happens in bursts. It's not about diving in full throttle for a few weeks, making some progress, and then burning out. No, the real trick is in the daily grind. It's about making small, consistent efforts every single day. Musashi himself believed that excellence wasn't built overnight. It was something that took years, even a lifetime, to master. But here's the kicker: it's not just about doing things, it's about doing them mindfully. When you focus on continuous self-improvement, you stop looking at each day as something to just get through. Instead, you begin to view each moment as an opportunity to refine, to get just a little bit better. It might be as simple as improving how you handle stress or learning to listen more effectively. Those aren't flashy, dramatic improvements, but they matter. The sum of these little changes over time is what will truly transform you into someone who's always evolving, always improving. One of the most powerful things Musashi teaches us is the value of self-reflection. Without it, growth becomes directionless. If you're not regularly checking in with yourself, how do you know where you need to improve? How can you possibly know if you're on the right track? Self-reflection isn't just about thinking back on your mistakes. It's about being brutally honest with yourself, recognizing your strengths and weaknesses, and figuring out where you need to push harder. It's an ongoing process of evaluating where you are and where you want to go. This doesn't mean you need to be overly critical, though. Musashi's philosophy is not about beating yourself up or aiming for perfection, it's about progress. Self-improvement is about making sure that, little by little, you're moving forward. Perfection doesn't exist, and Musashi knew that. It's the constant striving, the constant refining, that matters. Another thing Musashi's philosophy highlights is the idea of balance. When you focus on improving, it's easy to get caught up in one area of your life and ignore the others. But to truly improve, you need to develop a well-rounded approach. You can't neglect your physical health, mental well-being, or emotional growth just because you're focused on one thing. Self-improvement isn't just about getting better at a skill, it's about becoming a better version of yourself as a whole. Musashi wasn't just a sword master, he was a philosopher, a strategist, and a student of life. His broad approach to learning and growth is something we can all learn from. The beauty of Musashi's philosophy is that it gives you permission to never stop growing. It's liberating when you realize that there's no finish line, no final destination where you can say, "I'm done now." The path of continuous self-improvement is one that goes on forever, but that's what makes life exciting. Every day is a chance to make yourself a little better than the day before. And the more you embrace this mindset, the more you'll find that every challenge, every setback, becomes an opportunity for growth. In the end, focusing on continuous self-improvement isn't about aiming for perfection, it's about embracing the journey of becoming your best self. Musashi understood that, and if we can adopt this mindset, we too can unlock our true potential. So keep moving forward, keep learning, and keep striving. The path of growth is infinite, and that's the greatest gift you can give yourself. Number 7, overcome fear and doubt through action. Overcoming fear and doubt isn't some grand mystical process, it's a matter of action. And Musashi? He knew this better than anyone. If you really look at his life, it wasn't one filled with comfort or certainty. Far from it. He lived in a world of constant uncertainty, surrounded by danger and conflict. Yet, despite all that, he wasn't paralyzed by fear. Why? Because he learned one simple truth: you don't beat fear by thinking your way out of it. You beat it by doing. See, fear is sneaky. It can worm its way into your thoughts, make you question yourself, and convince you that you're not ready, not good enough, or that the risk is too great. Doubt is the little voice that whispers, "What if I fail? What if I'm not prepared?" The thing is, that voice will always be there. It doesn't go away just because you try to ignore it. In fact, the more you try to avoid it, the louder it gets. But Musashi's philosophy flips the script on that. He didn't waste his time waiting for fear to disappear. Instead, he did the opposite. He took action, and in doing so, he taught us that the antidote to fear is simply moving forward, even when the doubt is thick. Think about it. When you're scared of something, you often hesitate. You stall, you think, you second-guess yourself. But the more you think, the more the fear builds, until it feels like you're trapped. Musashi understood this. He didn't sit there pondering the what-ifs of a situation. He dove in, acted swiftly, and let the experience show him the next step. The fear, instead of holding him back, actually propelled him to take decisive action, to break through that mental barrier. Here's the kicker: fear thrives on inaction. When you freeze, when you're stuck in the cycle of should I or shouldn't I, you give fear all the power. But when you move, even if it's just a small step forward, you take that power away. You make fear lose its grip on you. It's like this paradox: the more you act, the less power fear has over you. You don't have to have all the answers, or be fully prepared. Musashi wasn't always sure of the outcome, but he always took action. He never let fear stop him from moving forward. And you know what's powerful about this approach? It doesn't have to be some heroic leap. You don't need to go all in from the get-go. Sometimes, it's about taking a single step in the right direction. It's about choosing to act, even when your heart's racing, when your mind is telling you that you're not ready. Musashi's genius wasn't in his ability to never feel fear. It was in his refusal to let that fear dictate his actions. Every time you take action, no matter how small, you're teaching your mind that fear doesn't control you. You're proving to yourself that you can handle what comes next. You learn, you adapt, you grow stronger. The more you act in the face of doubt, the less room you leave for fear to linger. And over time, that fear, that doubt, becomes less and less of a factor. It's like building a muscle. At first, it's weak, wobbly, and shaky. But the more you exercise it, the stronger it gets. And soon, acting becomes second nature. Musashi didn't wait for the perfect moment. He didn't wait until everything lined up perfectly. He acted with what he had, in the moment, and used each step as a chance to sharpen his skills, refine his approach, and overcome the doubts that popped up along the way. So, whenever you find yourself paralyzed by fear or tangled in doubt, ask yourself, what would Musashi do? He wouldn't sit there, wondering if he was ready. He'd take action. So, next time that wave of fear or doubt hits, don't overthink it. Don't let it keep you stuck in your head. Just take the next step, however small. Because in that action, that very act of moving forward, you're already starting to break through the fear. You're proving to yourself that you can handle whatever comes your way. You're learning, growing, and becoming someone who doesn't let fear dictate the course of their life. And, in the process, you'll start to realize something important. The only way to truly overcome fear is to move through it. Number 8. Understand the power of timing and patience. Timing. It's everything, isn't it? Musashi knew this better than most. In his world of constant battles and duels, timing was often the difference between life and death. But it's not just about knowing when to act, it's also about knowing when not to act. In today's world, we're all caught in a rush. We want results now, we want action now, and we can get frustrated when things don't happen on our timeline. Musashi teaches us something critical: there's power in waiting. But it's not waiting aimlessly. It's waiting with purpose, with a calm mind, ready to move when the moment is right. The first thing to understand is that timing isn't just about choosing the right moment to act, it's also about understanding that there are times when an action is the most powerful decision you can make. Musashi was a master of patience. He understood that sometimes, the best way to win a battle wasn't by charging in blindly, but by waiting, observing, and letting the situation unfold. The patience he practiced wasn't passive, it was active. It was a waiting that was full of awareness, like a predator waiting for the perfect strike. He was always prepared, always alert, but he didn't rush. And that's where we can learn something powerful for our own lives. Let's face it, in our fast-paced world, patience is often seen as a weakness. We're conditioned to believe that the more we push, the more we strive, the faster we act, the better. But think about it, Musashi didn't win by being the quickest or the most aggressive. He won by being the one who could wait for the right moment. And that right moment? It often came when his opponents, driven by impatience, made a rash move. Musashi knew that sometimes, the key to success is simply not reacting too quickly. He could see the bigger picture while others were caught up in the small details, frantically trying to force things to happen. Now, let's talk about the tension between patience and action. This is where it gets interesting. Musashi wasn't just patient for the sake of it, he knew that timing had its own rhythm. Patience isn't about sitting around, doing nothing, it's about allowing things to come to you when they are meant to. Think of it like holding a bowstring taut. The more you wait, the more potential energy builds up. And when you release, that energy is released in one powerful move. Timing is that moment of release. It's the moment when all that preparation, all that waiting, comes together in perfect harmony. The reason patience is so powerful is because it creates space for clarity. Musashi knew that when you act out of haste or frustration, your mind is clouded, and your judgment is off. But when you practice patience, you clear the fog. You get to observe what's actually going on, and from that place of stillness, you make decisions with greater precision. It's like giving yourself room to think, to breathe, to see the situation from every angle, so when you do make your move, it's sharp, it's deliberate, and it's effective. It's also important to realize that patience doesn't mean you're passive. Musashi's patience was about maintaining control. Even when he wasn't acting outwardly, he was always preparing. This is the key. In life, we often think that we're wasting time when we're waiting. But Musashi shows us that waiting isn't wasting, it's the perfect moment for honing your skills, sharpening your mind, and gathering your strength. The time you spend in waiting is never truly wasted if you're using it to better yourself. It's in these quiet moments that you prepare for when the timing is right to strike. Think about it this way: the best things in life don't happen overnight. Musashi's life was the result of years and years of honing his craft, studying, and practicing his strategy. He didn't expect quick results, and that's exactly why he succeeded. He understood that true mastery takes time, and that's where the power of patience lies. It's in the ability to trust the process, to believe that your efforts are building something, even if you can't see it immediately. So, how do you apply this to your own life? It starts with cultivating an awareness of timing and knowing when to push forward and when to pull back. It's about resisting the urge to rush and instead learning to trust that your path will unfold at its own pace. And in the meantime, focus on becoming the best version of yourself so that when your moment arrives, you're ready for it. When you embrace the power of timing and patience, life starts to feel less like a frantic race and more like a well-tuned instrument, where every note is played at the right moment. It's about trusting the process, staying grounded, and knowing that every move, no matter how small, brings you one step closer to your goal. Number 9. Cultivate a deep understanding of your strengths and weaknesses. If you want to make serious progress in life, there's one thing you absolutely must understand: yourself. And not just the good parts, not just the areas where you shine, but also those places where you stumble, the places where you're vulnerable, and the areas that need work. Miyamoto Musashi, the legendary swordsman, was a master at this. His philosophy wasn't just about honing his combat skills, it was about developing a deep understanding of his own nature. He knew exactly where he excelled and, just as importantly, where he fell short. And this level of self-awareness is something we all can learn from. Now, let's be clear, this isn't about beating yourself up over your weaknesses. It's about seeing them for what they are, part of you, but not the defining feature of who you are. Musashi understood that no one, no matter how skilled, is without flaws. But it's how you choose to view and respond to those weaknesses that really matters. By taking a long, hard look at your strengths and weaknesses, you give yourself the power to make conscious decisions that will drive your growth. You get to decide where to focus your energy, how to build on your talents, and where to put in the work to improve. The thing is, most people aren't willing to dig that deep. We like to avoid our weaknesses. It's uncomfortable. It's easy to play to our strengths, to stay in the areas where we feel good and validated. But if we're honest with ourselves, we all know that growth happens in the uncomfortable places. Musashi's philosophy teaches us that real mastery comes when you face those uncomfortable parts head-on. When you understand where you're naturally strong and where you're not, you can make better decisions in both your personal and professional life. You can stop wasting energy trying to be good at everything and, instead, focus on the areas that truly matter. It's all about creating a strategic balance. Musashi didn't just rely on his sword skills, he understood the importance of adaptability, the need to change strategies based on the situation at hand. But that only works if you truly understand what you bring to the table. When you know your strengths, you know what to double down on. And when you're clear about your weaknesses, you can actively work to shore them up or, better yet, find ways to navigate around them. Strength and weakness aren't opposites, they're two sides of the same coin. But here's the thing, this isn't about comparing yourself to others. Musashi didn't look at his opponents and try to measure himself against them. His focus was always on improving himself, understanding where he could sharpen his own skills, where he could get stronger. So, don't fall into the trap of thinking you need to be good at everything, or that you need to measure up to some unrealistic standard. Focus on what you can control, yourself. And that starts with understanding where you truly excel and where you struggle. A big part of this is self-reflection. Musashi spent years refining not only his physical skills but his mental and emotional understanding as well. To him, being a great swordsman wasn't just about having good technique. It was about having the right mindset, the ability to stay calm, focused, and present. He knew that his success in battle depended just as much on his mental clarity as it did on his physical abilities. In the same way, our success in life is heavily influenced by our ability to recognize our mental and emotional strengths and weaknesses. When you take the time to really evaluate yourself, it forces you to stop pretending. It helps you see your blind spots and gives you the opportunity to work on them. Maybe you're naturally creative, but you struggle with consistency. Maybe you're great at making decisions, but sometimes you lack follow-through. These aren't reasons to give up, they're the exact things you can work on to get better. Musashi didn't just accept his weaknesses, he actively sought to improve them. His drive wasn't about being perfect, it was about getting better, piece by piece, day by day. The key to making this work is honesty. Be brutally honest with yourself about your strengths and your weaknesses. Don't sugarcoat anything or pretend that things are better than they really are. It's uncomfortable, but it's also incredibly powerful. Once you can see yourself clearly, you're free to make real, lasting change. You stop getting stuck in the cycle of self-doubt and start to take charge of your own development. In the end, Musashi's wisdom on self-awareness is a reminder that knowing yourself is the foundation for everything else. The more you understand your strengths and weaknesses, the more you can navigate life with purpose and clarity. And just like Musashi, you'll find that with this kind of self-awareness, you can rise to any challenge, adapt to any situation, and keep pushing yourself toward greatness. Number 10. Seek spiritual growth and inner peace. When you hear about Musashi, you might immediately picture him in the heat of battle, sword drawn, eyes locked on his opponent. But what most people overlook is the deep spiritual wisdom that ran through his veins, a wisdom that goes far beyond the clashing of blades. Musashi's life wasn't just about perfecting his swordsmanship. It was about perfecting himself. His journey was one of constant growth, not just in skill but in spirit. If you really want to transform your life, Musashi's philosophy teaches us to seek spiritual growth and inner peace, because those things aren't separate from what we do in the world. They're what allow us to do anything at all with purpose. Spiritual growth isn't something you can force. It's not about checking boxes or chasing after some ideal of enlightenment. No, it's about being present with yourself, acknowledging the areas where you need growth, and accepting that the journey doesn't end. Musashi understood this on a fundamental level. His path wasn't one of avoiding struggles but embracing them, learning from each hardship, and finding peace within the chaos. He didn't look outside for peace. Instead, he learned to cultivate it from within. This is something we all struggle with, right? The world around us is chaotic, noisy, and constantly changing. It's easy to get swept up in the hustle and bustle, to think that if we just achieve the next goal, or get the next thing, we'll finally feel at peace. But Musashi would tell you that peace isn't found in the external world. It's found in the way you approach life. The mind that constantly chases after the next thing will never be satisfied. True peace comes from the acceptance of where you are, right here, right now. Spiritual growth isn't about escaping the world or retreating from reality. It's about learning how to exist in the world without being overwhelmed by it. Musashi's philosophy teaches us that inner peace isn't about suppressing emotions or thoughts, it's about mastering them. When you have a chaotic mind, nothing in the world can bring you peace. The key, Musashi would argue, is stillness. Not in the physical sense, but in your heart and mind. It's about creating that quiet space where you can see things clearly, where external circumstances don't have the power to throw you off course. It's in this stillness that you find clarity, purpose, and the strength to act with intention. But how do you get to this place of inner peace? How do you cultivate this sense of spiritual growth? Musashi would tell you it starts with self-reflection. It's about looking within and understanding who you truly are. Spiritual growth doesn't happen by copying someone else or trying to live up to some ideal. It happens when you stop running from your own flaws, mistakes, and imperfections, and instead, you embrace them as part of your journey. When you can stand in the face of your own weaknesses and acknowledge them without shame, that's when true growth begins. It also requires a deep level of acceptance. You can't control everything that happens around you. Life will throw curveballs, challenges, and obstacles your way. But you can control how you respond. Musashi wasn't a man who waited for things to be perfect before acting. He learned to find peace within himself, regardless of the external circumstances. That's spiritual growth in its purest form, learning to stay grounded, no matter how turbulent the world may seem. And let's be real for a second, this kind of inner peace doesn't come easily. It takes practice, patience, and discipline. It's not about achieving some final destination where everything is calm and perfect. It's about the ongoing process of learning to quiet the mind, accept what comes, and maintain your center even when the world around you feels like it's spinning out of control. Musashi's life was a journey of self-discovery, of constantly refining not just his technique but his soul. He didn't just wield a sword, he wielded self-awareness, control, and purpose. And this is the lesson for all of us: spiritual growth isn't about waiting for life to hand us peace. It's about going inward, developing a deep understanding of ourselves, and then carrying that peace with us, no matter what challenges life throws our way. So, when you find yourself feeling scattered or disconnected, remember Musashi's words. Seek spiritual growth not as a destination but as a lifelong practice. Cultivate inner peace, not by looking for it outside of yourself, but by looking within. Because once you find that peace within, nothing in the external world can take it from you. And that, my friend, is the ultimate form of strength. And that's how Miyamoto Musashi's philosophy can truly transform your life. Whether it's mastering the art of discipline, focusing on continuous growth, or conquering your fears, his timeless wisdom has the power to reshape the way you approach life's challenges. Did you know Miyamoto Musashi fought his very first duel at just 13 years old, and still emerged victorious? In How to Think Like a Samurai, Miyamoto Musashi's strategy for modern success will reveal the time-tested mindset that allowed him to remain undefeated in over 60 challenges, and show you how to apply it to your career, personal life, and everyday decisions. Stay with me to the end, because once you discover the inner discipline, razor-sharp focus, and unshakable confidence that defined Musashi's life, you'll have a powerful blueprint for achieving your own modern-day victories. Number 1. Cultivate a mindset of discipline and focus. When we talk about cultivating a mindset of discipline and focus, it's about more than just doing the work. It's about the way you approach everything. It's an art, a lifestyle, something deeply rooted in your day-to-day habits. And to truly get it, we have to look at how Musashi, the great samurai strategist, lived his life. Musashi didn't just swing his sword, he mastered his own mind, and that's exactly what you can do to set yourself apart. Think about this: discipline isn't just about resisting temptation or sticking to a routine, it's about clarity. You get clear on what truly matters to you, and you start eliminating distractions. Imagine being so locked in on a task that the world around you could be crumbling, and you wouldn't even notice. That's focus at its finest, and it's something Musashi nailed down in his own way. The first thing to understand is that discipline is freedom. It's easy to see discipline as a prison, a set of rules that tie you down. But in reality, it's the exact opposite. When you choose to be disciplined, you're choosing to take control. It's not about following some rigid structure, it's about creating an environment where your best self can emerge. Musashi wasn't just fighting in battle, he was constantly fighting distractions. Whether it was the noise of life or the inner turmoil of self-doubt, he knew how to silence it all and stay locked into the present moment. Now, focus. That's where things get interesting. Musashi wasn't just laser-focused in battle. His focus was an all-encompassing force. He focused on his training, his strategy, his mindset, and yes, even his sword. That focus extended into everything he did. It wasn't about being constantly busy, but rather being ruthlessly efficient in how he used his energy. In our world, that's something we can learn from. Being busy is easy. The real challenge is to know what's worth your focus. What's interesting is that focus and discipline go hand in hand. You can't have one without the other. It's like trying to fight with a broken sword. Focus without discipline is chaos. Discipline without focus is pointless. You need both to carve your path. Musashi would spend days, months, years honing his skills, not because he was forced to, but because he knew the value of consistently sharpening his mind and body. His discipline allowed him to stay focused on the things that truly moved him forward. In modern times, it's easy to get caught in the trap of multitasking. Our phones buzz constantly, there's a never-ending stream of content demanding our attention, and everyone has an opinion on what we should be doing. But if we truly want to think like a samurai, we need to practice the art of saying no. Saying no to distractions. Saying no to mindless scrolling. Saying no to anything that doesn't serve your purpose. Musashi wasn't swayed by the noise around him. He had a singular focus, becoming the best. He didn't waste time on things that didn't matter. And here's the kicker, focus doesn't mean working harder, it means working smarter. It's about aligning your efforts with your deeper intentions. Musashi understood that training the body is important, but training the mind is even more critical. Focus isn't about forcing yourself to grind endlessly, it's about being present, engaged, and intentional in whatever you do. It's the art of moving with purpose, each step calculated and meaningful. When you make focus and discipline part of your mindset, something shifts. You stop looking for shortcuts and start embracing the process. You start seeing setbacks not as failures, but as opportunities to refine your skills. Musashi's success wasn't built on talent or luck, it was built on his unwavering commitment to discipline and his sharp, strategic focus. So, how do you develop this mindset? Start small. Set clear intentions. Break down your tasks, eliminate distractions, and challenge yourself to be fully present. And over time, like Musashi, you'll begin to see the world not as a place full of obstacles, but as a space where you can channel your inner strength and focus. Discipline and focus will become second nature. And just like the samurai, you'll find that nothing can stand in your way when you're in the zone. Number 2, embrace challenges as opportunities for growth. One of the core teachings that has survived centuries, passed down through warriors, scholars, and business leaders, is that challenges are not obstacles to be avoided but stepping stones to something greater. This mindset is at the heart of what it means to think like a samurai, and it's not just a strategy for ancient warriors, it's the key to thriving in the modern world. Think about it, when we encounter difficulties, the immediate instinct might be to dodge them, find the easiest way out, or even panic. But what if we could flip that? What if instead of seeing a challenge as something to fear, we could see it as an invitation? An opportunity not just to survive, but to grow, evolve, and sharpen our skills in ways we couldn't have anticipated. The samurai knew this instinctively. Their way of life was built on constant challenges, whether it was combat, strategy, or discipline. But they didn't just face these challenges head-on because they had no choice, they saw them as the very thing that refined their abilities. In fact, the samurai philosophy of the way of the warrior teaches us that personal growth is forged through adversity. A warrior who never faced a challenge would have no chance to grow stronger, wiser, or more resilient. And here's the twist: in our modern lives, it's often the hardest moments that push us into new territory. The moments that force us to stretch beyond our comfort zones are where the magic happens. Think about a time when you felt overwhelmed by something you didn't think you could handle. But then, somehow, you did it. You pushed through, maybe not perfectly, but you emerged from the other side changed. Those moments? They're the equivalent of sharpening your blade in the forge. Without them, we stay dull. Challenges don't just test us, they reveal what we're made of. They expose our weaknesses, yes, but they also highlight our strengths. This is why it's so important to embrace them, to see them as an opportunity to not just survive, but to thrive. Every tough situation you face is like a mirror, reflecting parts of yourself that you might not have known were there. They show you what needs work and what is already strong. It's tempting to run away from discomfort. We live in a world that's designed for ease, instant gratification, convenience at our fingertips. But this ease often comes at the cost of growth. We need the challenge, the friction. Without it, we risk stagnation, and stagnation is the enemy of progress. By running toward challenges, we build endurance, resilience, and mental clarity. These are the very tools that keep us moving forward, no matter how tough the road gets. A samurai wouldn't retreat in the face of a storm, right? No, they would face it with resolve, knowing that the storm itself would shape them into someone stronger. This is the exact mentality that modern success demands. Whether you're building a career, pursuing a passion, or overcoming personal hurdles, the road will never be smooth. But it's through navigating these rough patches that we find the gold, the growth that can only be mined from real struggle. And here's the real kicker: once you start seeing challenges as growth opportunities, you'll find yourself not just surviving them, but even seeking them out. You'll begin to see each new obstacle as a test of your ability to adapt and evolve. And over time, this mindset becomes part of your DNA. It doesn't matter what life throws at you anymore, because you know it's an opportunity to become more than you were yesterday. So, next time you're faced with something difficult, don't run. Don't shy away. Embrace it. Dive in. Look for what it can teach you. Take a page out of the samurai's book, face your challenges head-on, sharpen your mind, and come out on the other side more resilient, more capable, and more ready to conquer the next challenge that awaits. After all, growth doesn't come from comfort, it comes from the grind. Number 3, think strategically and plan ahead. Alright, let's dive into how thinking strategically and planning ahead is a game changer when it comes to success, especially if we take a page from the legendary Miyamoto Musashi's playbook. Musashi, the famed samurai who lived in a world where life or death could hinge on the smallest decision, knew the value of looking beyond the immediate. The strategy wasn't about reacting to the present moment, it was about seeing the whole picture, considering all possibilities, and then moving with purpose. This mindset doesn't just apply to the battlefield but can transform how we approach everyday challenges in our modern world. Now, think about it. In a world that's so fast-paced and filled with distractions, it's easy to get caught up in the heat of the moment. We're often so busy reacting to emails, texts, and the demands of the day that we forget to take a step back and look at the bigger picture. But this is exactly where Musashi's approach shines. He didn't just focus on the current battle. He was thinking about the next step, the next move, and how to get the upper hand long before it was time to strike. It's almost like playing chess, but not just the next move, thinking about moves 5, 6, or 7 ahead. Musashi believed that a samurai needed to plan his actions thoroughly, anticipating both his opponent's moves and the environment around him. This isn't about being paranoid or overthinking, it's about setting a clear intention, knowing what your end goal is, and carving out the steps to get there. Planning ahead isn't just about having a list of tasks to get through. It's about creating a roadmap with milestones that guide you toward your long-term goal, even if that goal isn't immediately clear. For Musashi, his life was a constant battle, but that didn't mean he was constantly reacting. Instead, he was always several steps ahead, crafting his strategy, refining his technique, and adapting to whatever challenges came his way. This doesn't mean you need to have everything figured out in the moment. In fact, some of the greatest breakthroughs happen when we step back, take a deep breath, and give ourselves the mental space to reflect. Musashi knew that while being reactive could save you in the short term, it wouldn't lead to lasting success. What did Musashi do? He stayed disciplined. He trained, yes, but he also spent time reflecting, analyzing, and, most importantly, planning. By doing so, when it was time to act, he wasn't scrambling to think of what to do next, he already knew the best course of action. Here's the thing, strategizing isn't about rigidly sticking to a plan either. It's about knowing the overall direction and then adjusting as life throws unexpected curveballs. The samurai lived with an awareness that things could go wrong at any moment, but they trusted their strategy and instincts enough to adapt and remain focused on the end goal. Planning ahead, in the spirit of Musashi, means being proactive in shaping the future you want. It means thinking about where you want to be 6 months from now, or even a year from now, and breaking that down into smaller steps. You don't have to be perfect, and you certainly don't need all the answers immediately. What matters is that you're making conscious decisions based on the direction you want your life to take. So, next time you feel like you're just treading water, remember that even in the middle of chaos, you can take a step back, reassess, and replan. Like Musashi, who always had his mind on the bigger picture, you can create space to think and act with purpose. Number 4, act with decisiveness and confidence. Acting with decisiveness and confidence isn't just a matter of choosing what to do, it's about knowing why you're doing it. It's about moving through life like you're always on a mission, with a clear sense of purpose and the inner strength to back it up. When we talk about decisiveness and confidence, we're diving into the very core of what it means to think like a samurai. And let me tell you, it's not as easy as snapping your fingers and expecting results. No, this is a mindset, a muscle that needs to be trained over time. Think about it for a second. Decisiveness isn't just about making quick decisions. It's about making decisions that align with who you are and where you want to go. Musashi, in his quest to master the sword, didn't waste time second-guessing himself. He didn't hesitate before every strike. He didn't wonder if he was doing the right thing. He acted. And that's the key here, action. Decisive action comes from a place of clarity, and that clarity only comes when you've fully committed to your purpose. Without that, you're just wandering aimlessly, unsure of which direction to take. But it's not just about being quick. Decisiveness is a deep-rooted trust in your own judgment. It's knowing that, even if you stumble, you will learn and adapt. Confidence doesn't come from always being right. It comes from knowing you can handle whatever comes your way, whether it's success or failure. Musashi didn't wake up one day as a master swordsman, and he didn't get to where he was by simply playing it safe. He trusted his ability to pivot, to act without hesitation, and to deal with the consequences head-on. Here's where we get into the tricky part. Acting with confidence doesn't mean you have to feel confident all the time. Confidence is a byproduct of action. It's something you build as you go, piece by piece. When Musashi stepped onto the battlefield, he wasn't always 100% sure of the outcome. But he knew that hesitation would get him killed. So, he chose to act with the certainty of someone who had already made up his mind. There's something powerful about that kind of mental fortitude. When you can act without constantly questioning your every move, you free yourself to accomplish so much more. And let's talk about fear. We all have it, don't we? The fear of making the wrong decision, the fear of failing, the fear of being judged. Musashi wasn't immune to fear, far from it. But he learned how to move with it, not around it. He understood that fear was simply a natural response to uncertainty. But here's the thing, he didn't let it stop him. In fact, he leaned into it. The samurai mentality isn't about eliminating fear, it's about learning how to make decisions and act, even when fear is hanging around like an unwanted guest. Being decisive means you've trained your mind to bypass the noise of overthinking. It's about being able to see the bigger picture and make a call, even when the immediate details are blurry. Musashi wasn't concerned with every single variable, he trusted that his training, his instincts, and his strategy would see him through. And you can take that same mindset into your daily life. Every time you hesitate, every time you find yourself stuck in the mental loop of what if, you're delaying your progress. That hesitation is a roadblock, a self-imposed limit that's holding you back from taking action. Acting with confidence means owning your decisions. You don't sit around and wait for approval from others. You don't ask for permission. You don't look for external validation. Instead, you stand firm in what you believe and commit to it. And guess what? You don't need to have all the answers. The samurai didn't wait for the perfect moment. They created it by acting in the moment, trusting their preparation, and adapting along the way. So, how can you cultivate this decisiveness and confidence? Start by making small decisions with full commitment. Don't overthink it, just choose and follow through. Over time, you'll start building that inner muscle of confidence, where every decision feels more natural, and your actions start to reflect the certainty you've developed. You'll realize that the more you trust yourself and your choices, the more powerful your decisions will become. Decisiveness and confidence are like the sword of a samurai, sharp, steady, and always ready for action. And once you embrace this mindset, you'll start cutting through obstacles with the same precision. Don't wait for the perfect moment, create it with every decision you make. Because when you act with clarity, decisiveness, and unwavering confidence, there's nothing that can stand in your way. Number 5. Maintain a calm and clear mind under pressure. When the heat is on and everything seems to be spiraling out of control, what do? Panic? Freeze up? Or do you step back, take a deep breath, and find your center? This is exactly where the samurai mindset comes into play. The ability to stay calm and clear-minded when the pressure is cranked up isn't just a nice-to-have trait, it's a fundamental strategy for success. And it's something that Musashi, the legendary swordsman, understood deeply. You see, when you're in the middle of a battle, whether it's a literal fight or a figurative one, emotions can cloud your judgment. The adrenaline kicks in, your heart races, and everything around you starts to feel urgent. It's easy to get swept up in the chaos, to act on impulse or to get carried away by the situation. But here's the thing, the samurai knew that reacting without thought, in the heat of the moment, leads to mistakes. It's the person who can maintain mental clarity, even in the storm, who comes out on top. Musashi was a master at this. He spent his life honing not just his physical skills but his mental discipline. His mind was his greatest weapon. He understood that, to be truly effective in any conflict, whether it's a sword fight or a high-stakes business decision, you need to detach from the noise and stay grounded in the moment. When the pressure's on, it's easy to start thinking about all the possible outcomes, to let fear or uncertainty pull your focus in 1,000 directions. But when you're calm, you create space to see things clearly. You get a wider view, a deeper perspective. Staying calm under pressure isn't about suppressing your feelings or pretending that everything is fine when it's clearly not. It's not about being emotionless, it's about being aware. It's about recognizing when your mind is starting to race, when your body starts to tense up, and choosing to slow down rather than speeding up. Think of it like a moment of clarity in the midst of confusion. When everyone else is losing their heads, you become the one who can think, plan, and act with precision. This is where the concept of stillness in motion comes into play. It's not about freezing up or disengaging when things get tough. It's about moving with purpose, while maintaining an inner calm. The samurai were known for their ability to fight with fluidity, but their movements were always controlled. They weren't just reacting, they were responding with a clear mind, letting their training and instincts take over. It was their mental calm that allowed them to remain effective, no matter how fast or furious the battle. In today's world, the pressure comes at us from all angles: deadlines, expectations, unforeseen challenges, and the ability to stay calm can often feel like an impossible task. But, just like the samurai, you can train yourself to keep your mind steady, no matter the storm. The first step is awareness. Recognize when you're starting to get overwhelmed, when your thoughts are spiraling. Don't let those feelings hijack your ability to think clearly. Next, breathe. It sounds simple, but it works. When you consciously focus on your breath, you're sending a signal to your body that it doesn't need to panic. This pause gives you the space you need to regain your focus and shift your mind back into clarity. It's almost like pressing a reset button. The world doesn't have to be falling apart just because everything is speeding up around you. And then, there's the power of perspective. Musashi was known for his ability to assess the situation without getting tangled up in his emotions. He would step back mentally, detach himself from the chaos, and see the bigger picture. That's what staying calm under pressure allows you to do. It helps you zoom out and make decisions from a place of wisdom, not fear. In our own lives, we face moments where the pressure feels unbearable, where every decision feels crucial, and we're stuck in that frantic, overwhelmed state. But when you cultivate a calm, clear mind, you become the eye of the storm. You stop reacting impulsively and start responding with a sense of purpose, even when the world around you seems unpredictable. It's not about being invincible or never feeling the weight of stress. It's about knowing that you have the tools to maintain your composure, to stay grounded, and to find clarity when things get intense. When you think like a samurai, you trust your mind and your training. You understand that your calmness is the most powerful tool you have. In a world full of noise, staying centered is your greatest advantage. Number 6, learn from your failures and adjust accordingly. Alright, let's talk about failure. It's a tough pill to swallow, right? But what if I told you that failure could be your best friend? That's exactly what Miyamoto Musashi understood. To him, failure wasn't something to avoid or fear, it was an opportunity to grow, to adapt, and to sharpen his skills. Now, I know this might sound a little odd, but hear me out. We live in a culture that treats failure like a final verdict. You fail, and that's it, game over. But Musashi? He looked at failure as a valuable lesson. A lesson in what not to do, sure, but more importantly, a lesson in how to adjust, refine, and become even better. He saw failure as a teacher, and he wasn't afraid to learn from it. Imagine being in the middle of a fierce battle. You think you have the upper hand, but suddenly things go wrong. Maybe your sword slips, maybe your footing isn't quite right, maybe your strategy isn't working. In that moment, it's easy to panic, to get frustrated, or to just give up. But Musashi didn't let that happen. He'd pause, reassess, and adjust on the fly. His failures were moments of deep reflection, not just quick setbacks. He understood that without failure, there would be no real progress. In today's world, we're always told to strive for perfection, to avoid failure at all costs. But this constant pressure to be flawless can actually hold us back. Why? Because it stops us from taking risks. It stops us from making mistakes that, in the end, are the very things that shape us into stronger, more resilient individuals. Musashi knew this intimately. He wasn't afraid to fail, because he knew that every misstep carried with it the key to unlocking his next level of mastery. Here's the catch though, it's not just about failing. It's about learning from it. Musashi didn't make mistakes and then move on without reflecting. No, he took the time to understand what went wrong and why. What did he miss? What could he have done differently? This is the mindset that separates those who grow from those who stay stuck. Adjusting accordingly is the next big step. The key isn't to repeat the same mistake over and over again. That's the definition of insanity, right? It's about using failure as feedback. When something doesn't go as planned, take a moment. Look at the situation. Ask yourself some tough questions. How did I approach this? Was my strategy off? Was my timing wrong? Or maybe it was just a case of me not putting in enough effort. Musashi didn't just rely on his previous successes. He learned from every battle, whether he won or lost. He took notes, mentally and physically, and then adjusted his technique. In his world, if you didn't adjust, you lost. If you didn't adapt, you were left behind. So, when you fail, and trust me, you will fail, don't let it be for nothing. Dig deeper. Look for the patterns. See where you went wrong and use that as the fuel to move forward. Now, I get it. It's hard to look at a failure and not feel discouraged, especially when it stings. It's tough not to take it personally. But what Musashi understood, and what we can learn from him, is that failure doesn't define you. It's what you do after the failure that matters. It's your response, your ability to bounce back, and your commitment to adjusting your approach that ultimately makes the difference. Don't let the fear of failure hold you back from trying. Don't let it make you so cautious that you avoid opportunities to grow. Instead, see failure as a stepping stone, as a crucial part of the journey. And when you face setbacks, remember Musashi's mindset. Embrace failure, learn from it, adjust accordingly, and keep moving forward. Because in the end, the samurai didn't just win battles, they mastered themselves. And that's something we can all aim to do, one failure at a time. Number 7, stay adaptable to changing circumstances. Staying adaptable to changing circumstances is one of those skills that seems simple on paper but is actually incredibly difficult in practice. It's about being able to flow with life's unpredictability, like a river winding through a changing landscape. You can't control the current, but you can adjust your course, maintaining your direction and purpose, no matter what comes your way. And this is where the samurai mindset, particularly the approach of Miyamoto Musashi, becomes invaluable. Musashi wasn't just a master of the sword, he was a master of flexibility. If you look at his life, it's full of unexpected twists and turns. Battles didn't always go as planned, circumstances shifted, and new challenges arose, yet he didn't break. He adapted. And that's the essence of what it means to stay adaptable, being able to stay calm, think quickly, and make adjustments in real time without losing sight of your goal. Now, let's talk about the concept of flow. When we think of adaptability, it's not about waiting for the storm to pass or trying to change the winds. It's about learning how to sail in the storm. It's about learning how to use every change to your advantage. The samurai, like Musashi, didn't just stand firm in the face of obstacles. They adjusted their strategy to fit the moment. And that kind of adaptability is a direct result of deep inner calm. When your mind is cluttered, it's hard to see the changes coming. You get stuck on rigid plans, and that's where you falter. But when you've trained yourself to be adaptable, you welcome change with open arms. Adaptability, at its core, is all about perspective. The world doesn't stay the same. One minute, everything could be going smoothly, and the next, you're hit with an unexpected challenge. The key here is to not panic. Musashi's whole philosophy revolved around the idea that change is constant, and instead of resisting it, you use it to your advantage. Every battle he fought was unpredictable, and yet he consistently adjusted his approach to emerge victorious. That's the essence of adaptability, the willingness to adjust without losing your center. But let's dive deeper into the mindset behind adaptability. It's not just about reacting. It's about proactively preparing your mind to shift gears when necessary. It's like learning how to read the signs. Just as Musashi could read his opponent's movements, you need to learn how to read your environment. It's about being present, being aware of subtle shifts, and acting swiftly when those shifts happen. Adaptability isn't passive. It's an active, ongoing process of fine-tuning your strategy to the situation at hand. And here's a crucial part: adaptability doesn't mean giving up your principles. It's about finding creative ways to work within your values. You don't lose who you are when things change, you just find new ways to express that. Musashi never sacrificed his integrity or his ideals. Instead, he found ways to apply them in different scenarios. If the environment changed, if the rules of the game shifted, Musashi's core approach didn't change. He adjusted, yes, but always within the framework of his purpose. And that's something to remember when navigating changes in your own life. In our fast-paced, ever-changing world, the pressure to stick to a single plan can be overwhelming. Everyone wants certainty. Everyone wants control. But certainty is an illusion. Change is inevitable. The only thing you can truly control is your response to it. When you allow yourself to be adaptable, you free yourself from the trap of rigid thinking. You stop worrying about making mistakes and start focusing on how to make the most of every situation. Flexibility becomes your strength. Here's where the real magic happens: when you're adaptable, you stop seeing change as a setback. Instead, it becomes a new opportunity to learn, grow, and refine your approach. Every shift is a chance to level up your thinking, your strategy, and your execution. Musashi's ability to read and react to the changes in his environment wasn't just a survival tactic, it was a way to thrive. And this is how you can use change to your advantage. So, how do you become more adaptable? It starts with embracing the unknown. Instead of fearing what's next, get comfortable with uncertainty. Cultivate the mindset that everything is an opportunity. Stay flexible, stay aware, and, above all, stay calm. It's like riding the wave rather than being tossed by it. When you learn to adapt in the moment, you stop reacting to life, you start shaping it. And just like Musashi, you become someone who doesn't just survive the storm, but uses the winds to his advantage. Number 8. Value continuous learning and self-improvement. If there's one thing that defines the samurai mindset, it's a relentless pursuit of growth. Musashi, the man who perfected the art of the sword, didn't stop at just mastering combat. He knew that being truly powerful meant constantly evolving, not just in his skills but in his understanding of the world, his mind, and himself. For the samurai, self-improvement wasn't a one-time thing. It was a lifelong commitment. In the modern world, this idea of constant learning is more important than ever. We live in a time where information is everywhere, and yet, many of us get caught up in the illusion of knowing everything. But here's the reality: the moment we think we've mastered something is often the moment we start to stagnate. The samurai were acutely aware of this. They understood that to stay ahead, to remain sharp in battle and in life, they had to keep learning, always. And let's be real for a second. This isn't always easy. It's tempting to think that once you've got a certain level of skill or knowledge, you've made it. We get comfortable. We start coasting. But here's the thing: comfort doesn't breed growth. Comfort breeds complacency. And complacency? It's the silent killer of progress. The samurai knew that if you wanted to stay on top of your game, you had to actively seek out ways to better yourself, every single day. Continuous learning isn't just about picking up new skills or gaining more knowledge. It's about adopting a mindset. It's about looking at every situation, every experience, as an opportunity to learn and grow. The samurai didn't just train when they had to, they trained because they loved the process. Whether it was perfecting their swordsmanship, studying strategy, or meditating to sharpen their focus, they understood that growth was a never-ending journey. They weren't just working towards some distant goal, they were embracing the fact that the journey itself was the point. In our world, it's easy to get distracted by flashy shortcuts or quick fixes. Everyone wants the secret to success, the hack that'll get them ahead without putting in the work. But Musashi, in the samurai way, teaches us that there's no magic formula. The only hack is consistent effort over time. Whether it's improving your craft, mastering new knowledge, or simply getting better at managing your own mind, the key is showing up every day and dedicating yourself to the process of becoming better than you were yesterday. Think about it, every day brings new challenges. There's always room for growth, no matter how successful you've become or how far you've come. Maybe it's your physical fitness, your emotional intelligence, or your ability to navigate difficult situations. Musashi didn't stop after one victory, he kept pushing forward. His self-improvement wasn't just about improving his sword techniques, it was about growing as a human being. And that's the real lesson here. It's not just about being the best at one thing, but about being the best version of yourself in all aspects of life. And it's not about being perfect, either. We're all human. We all have weaknesses. The samurai didn't expect perfection, they expected effort, discipline, and a willingness to learn from every experience. They knew that growth came from embracing failure, from learning from mistakes, and from not letting setbacks derail them. Every stumble was an opportunity to get back up stronger. In modern life, this commitment to continuous self-improvement can be applied to anything. It could be building a business, developing your personal relationships, or improving your health. The important part is understanding that the process never ends. There's always something to work on. There's always a new level to reach. And that's exciting, isn't it? To know that, no matter where you are today, there's always a tomorrow where you can be better, stronger, wiser. The samurai didn't just accept this idea, they thrived on it. So, how do we adopt this mindset? First, embrace curiosity. Ask questions, challenge your assumptions, and never stop seeking answers. Second, approach every situation as a learning opportunity. There's always something to gain, even from setbacks. And finally, make a habit of it. Just like Musashi picked up his sword every day, make self-improvement a daily practice. Not because you have to, but because you want to. You'll find that the more you commit to growing, the more fulfilling life becomes. The path of continuous learning is a long one, and there's no end to it. But it's the only path that leads to real growth. And if you think like a samurai, you'll realize that there's no greater honor than constantly becoming a better version of yourself. Number 9. Be humble and open to feedback. Let's get into humility. Yeah, I know, it's not the most exciting trait, but bear with me, especially when it comes to Musashi, the guy who was practically a living legend. You might think someone like him, with all his skills and wisdom, would have a massive ego. But nope, Musashi knew that real strength wasn't in arrogance, it was in being humble and staying open to feedback. It sounds counterintuitive, right? Here's this warrior who was unmatched in combat, and yet, he never stopped learning. That's the thing about Musashi, he knew that no matter how skilled he became, there was always more to discover. He was humble enough to admit that no matter how many battles he fought, he wasn't above learning something new. Not from the battlefield, not from his peers, not even from his enemies. That's next-level wisdom. Think about it. If you're constantly patting yourself on the back and thinking, "I know everything," you're missing out on the greatest opportunities to grow. The reality is, there's always someone who can teach you something, whether they're ahead of you in some area or even someone who's just starting out. But if you're not humble enough to be open to their perspective, you'll miss the chance to level up. Musashi had this laser-like focus on improvement, and part of that came from his willingness to listen and learn. The guy wasn't too proud to accept a critique, no matter where it came from. Imagine if he had just walked around thinking, "I'm already the best, why should I listen to anyone else?" He'd never have refined his swordsmanship, never have evolved his strategy. He would have plateaued, and when that happens, you start to lose. That's why humility wasn't just some nice-to-have trait for Musashi, it was essential for his growth. Being humble doesn't mean you have to downplay your accomplishments or pretend like you're bad at what you do. No, it means recognizing that no matter how much you've achieved, there's always room to improve. And being open to feedback isn't just about accepting compliments or hearing what you want to hear. It's about genuinely listening to the criticism, the suggestions, the opinions that may not always align with your own thoughts. Musashi understood that true mastery came from constant self-reflection and taking in what others had to offer, whether they agreed with him or not. This mindset of being open to feedback also means understanding your weaknesses. It's easy to get defensive when someone points out areas where you can improve. No one likes to hear about their flaws, right? But the key here is to shift your perspective. Instead of feeling threatened by criticism, see it as an opportunity to better yourself. Musashi didn't just react to his failures or mistakes. He embraced them as a chance to refine his skills. And that took humility. It took the ability to step back, check the ego at the door, and say, "What can I learn from this?" This doesn't mean you should let every single piece of feedback dictate your actions, but it does mean you should give it serious thought. Musashi didn't listen to everyone, but he was always willing to hear different viewpoints. In the same way, you can choose who you take advice from, but you should never close yourself off to learning, whether it's from someone more experienced or someone who's just starting out. Being humble and open to feedback also strengthens relationships. If you're constantly acting like you know everything, people won't feel comfortable giving you honest feedback. But when you show that you're willing to learn and evolve, it builds trust. People respect that. Musashi understood that the key to being a strong warrior wasn't just in his own personal strength, it was in his ability to adapt, to listen, and to grow from those around him. Ultimately, humility isn't about lowering your value or becoming self-deprecating. It's about recognizing that there's always room for growth. It's about keeping your mind open, staying grounded, and never assuming you've reached the top. The world is full of lessons, if you're willing to listen. And like Musashi, if you stay humble and open to feedback, you'll find that every encounter has something to teach you. It's that mindset that'll keep you on the path to mastering whatever you set your sights on. Number 10. Honor your commitments and act with integrity. When we talk about honoring commitments and acting with integrity, we're diving into something that feels a bit old school but is, without a doubt, timeless. In a world that's often obsessed with shortcuts, hustle culture, and instant results, holding yourself to a higher standard can feel a little out of place. But here's the thing, if you really want to think like a samurai and unlock the kind of success that Musashi achieved, this concept isn't just important, it's essential. At its core, honoring commitments is about one thing: trust. It's the trust you build with yourself first and foremost. When you say you're going to do something, do it. No excuses. No backing out. There's a deep, almost sacred bond that forms between you and your word. Musashi understood this better than most. For him, to honor a commitment wasn't just about keeping promises to others, it was about aligning every action with a set of principles that would guide him through every challenge. His word was his bond, and he never wavered from it. It wasn't up for debate. If he said he was going to do something, he did it. No matter what. In modern times, we're surrounded by distractions. People break commitments all the time, and it's almost become a norm to adjust or pivot when things get tough. But think about it, if you're constantly backing out of promises, whether to others or to yourself, what does that say about your integrity? What does it say about your ability to follow through? Musashi wouldn't have tolerated that kind of behavior from himself, and neither should you. When you honor your commitments, you're reinforcing your self-discipline. You're saying, I trust myself, and I can be relied upon. That's the kind of person people want to follow. And more importantly, that's the kind of person who moves mountains. But here's where it gets tricky. Integrity isn't just about doing what you said you would do, it's about doing the right thing, even when no one's looking. It's about sticking to your values, even when it's inconvenient, uncomfortable, or unpopular. Musashi lived his life by a set of codes that governed everything he did. He didn't compromise on what he believed to be true, even in the heat of battle. And it's that same level of unshakable integrity that can serve as your North Star when you face tough choices. You see, integrity is a reflection of your inner strength. It's about being so grounded in your values that nothing can knock you off course. The beauty of acting with integrity is that it creates a ripple effect. When you operate from a place of truth and consistency, you earn respect. But it doesn't stop there. You build something far more valuable, self-respect. When you know you've stayed true to your word and lived by your values, you walk taller. You sleep better. You're at peace with yourself. Now, let's talk about the relationship between integrity and action. It's easy to say the right things. It's easy to post motivational quotes on social media or talk a big game about your principles. But what really counts is whether your actions align with those words. Musashi's integrity wasn't shown through speeches or grand declarations. It was shown through his actions, the way he trained relentlessly, the way he respected his opponents, the way he lived by his code. It wasn't about talking about honor, it was about living it. And that's the challenge for all of us. It's not enough to just say you're committed. You have to show up. Day in, day out. Even when the going gets tough. So, how do you act with integrity in a world that sometimes seems to reward the opposite? It starts with understanding that integrity isn't just about big, life-changing decisions. It's about the little things. It's about being honest when it would be easier to lie. It's about taking responsibility for your mistakes instead of blaming others. It's about following through on those small commitments that seem insignificant but actually matter the most in the long run. If you can build integrity into the small things, the big things will take care of themselves. You'll be a person people can count on, and more importantly, you'll be someone you can count on. Honor your commitments. Act with integrity. And watch as the world around you begins to shift. Musashi knew that living by these principles was the key to mastering both his inner world and the external battles he faced. You can do the same. And that's how you can start thinking like a samurai with Musashi's strategies for modern success. By cultivating discipline, focus, and adaptability, you'll be ready to tackle any challenge and rise above the competition. If you found this video insightful, make sure to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who's ready to level up their mindset. Remember, the samurai's way isn't just about fighting, it's about mastering every aspect of life with honor and strategy. Until next time, stay sharp, stay strategic, and keep pushing forward towards success. Did you know Miyamoto Musashi wasn't just an undefeated samurai, but also the founder of a two-sword fighting style that revolutionized the art of combat? In 10 Timeless Strategies for Success from Miyamoto Musashi, we'll uncover the powerful principles that shaped his legendary life, and show you how they can be applied to your personal and professional journey today. From cultivating unwavering focus to mastering the art of adaptability, each of these strategies stands on its own, but you'll want to watch right through to the end to discover how they all fit together for truly unstoppable momentum. So get ready to step into the warrior's mindset and transform the way you face everyday challenges. Number 1. Master the fundamentals. When it comes to mastering the art of success, Miyamoto Musashi's advice to master the fundamentals hits at the heart of what truly makes greatness sustainable. It's easy to get lost in the allure of flashy, advanced techniques or complex strategies, but Musashi knew that without a solid foundation, all that extra stuff is just built on shaky ground. Let's break it down. You see, mastering the fundamentals is about understanding the basics so deeply that they become second nature. It's like learning how to walk before you run. Sounds simple, right? But it's often overlooked in our rush for instant results or the shortcut to success. We want to skip ahead to the cool moves, the big wins, and the fast track to the top. But what happens when you try to race ahead without the necessary skills to support it? You stumble. You fall. And, ultimately, you waste time and energy trying to fix things that never should have been broken in the first place. In Musashi's world, the fundamentals weren't just something you learned and moved on from. They were the core principles that you could always rely on, the stuff you could turn to when things got tough. The basics weren't boring, they were the key to building true mastery. Every stroke, every movement, every swing, and every decision was rooted in a deep understanding of the fundamentals. They were the bedrock on which everything else was built. And let's be honest here, mastering the basics can sometimes feel a little repetitive. It's not always the most exciting part of the journey. It's not about the fancy tricks or the glamorous shortcuts. But that's exactly what makes it powerful. The more you practice those simple, repetitive actions, the more they become ingrained in your body and mind. There's a certain magic in repetition, because it turns what was once a conscious effort into an automatic response. That's where real expertise lies. Not in the showy moves, but in the quiet confidence that comes from knowing your fundamentals inside and out. There's something to be said for how often success in any field can come down to how well you handle the basics. It's easy to get distracted by what everyone else is doing, especially when they're flashing new tools and tricks. But if you've mastered the fundamentals, you can see through the noise. You don't need the latest gadget or the trendiest new approach because you've already built a strong enough foundation to stand on. You can adapt, evolve, and innovate because you're grounded in a set of principles that don't change with the next big thing. Another key thing Musashi highlights is how fundamental mastery gives you clarity. When you're at a crossroads or faced with a challenge, it's not the complex solutions that will get you through. It's your ability to lean on the fundamentals and apply them in new ways. Whether you're navigating a difficult decision or figuring out how to improve your performance, the basics can be your compass. In moments of uncertainty, it's the fundamentals that will guide you back to where you need to be. Now, let's not confuse mastery of the fundamentals with stagnation. There's always room for growth and improvement, but true growth happens when you've built from a strong, steady base. Trying to innovate or advance without understanding the fundamentals is like building a house on sand. The more you deepen your grasp of the basics, the more freedom you have to experiment, fail, and learn without ever losing your footing. Mastering the fundamentals also gives you the ability to discern what's truly important. In a world filled with distractions and noise, the basics act as your filter. They help you separate the truly valuable from the superficial, the foundational from the fleeting. When you know what really matters, it becomes easier to stay focused and avoid getting sidetracked by things that won't actually help you succeed in the long run. At the end of the day, success isn't about being flashy or constantly looking for new ways to impress. It's about understanding and perfecting the basics, the things that form the core of everything you do. And just like Musashi, the more you devote yourself to mastering the fundamentals, the stronger and more resilient you'll become. It's not a shortcut to greatness, but it's definitely the only way to build lasting success. Number 2, embrace continuous learning. Sure, let's dive into the idea of embracing continuous learning, one of the most valuable strategies for success, as seen through the lens of Miyamoto Musashi. If you think about it, Musashi wasn't just a swordsman, he was an eternal student of life. The way he approached mastery wasn't about resting on his laurels or declaring victory once he'd won a battle. No, His journey was about constant refinement, evolving with every challenge, every encounter. Now, when we talk about continuous learning, it's easy to picture sitting down with a book or attending some course. But Musashi's form of learning went way beyond that. He wasn't obsessed with accumulating knowledge for the sake of it. He understood that real wisdom comes from practice and experience. Imagine, for a second, how he must have felt after every duel, every strategy he tested, every failure he faced. Instead of seeing those moments as setbacks, he saw them as opportunities to evolve, to refine not just his skills but his understanding of the world. The beautiful thing about Musashi's mindset is that he didn't limit himself to just one form of learning. He was a lifelong student, constantly absorbing everything around him. He didn't just study sword fighting, he studied nature, human behavior, and the way of the world. Why? Because everything is interconnected. When you understand the patterns in one area of life, they often apply to others. This idea of seeing learning as a never-ending process, of constantly adjusting your view based on new insights, is the very core of what we can take from Musashi. Here's the thing, learning doesn't have to mean mastering a new skill every single day, nor should it feel like a burden. The key is being open to new ideas, open to feedback, open to the unknown. This is where Musashi's approach comes into play. He didn't hold tight to old beliefs when faced with new information. Instead, he was willing to adapt and learn from whatever life threw his way. Think about how often we all get stuck in our comfort zones, clinging to what we know because it feels safe. Musashi's secret was his willingness to step out of that comfort zone every time, embracing discomfort because that's where growth happens. There's also this idea of humility in continuous learning. You see, Musashi wasn't the kind of person to assume he had everything figured out. He understood that knowledge is a vast ocean, and no matter how skilled you become, you're still just dipping your toes in. That humble awareness kept him curious, kept him searching for new ideas, new strategies, and new ways to improve. It's easy to think you've reached the top once you've achieved a certain level of success, but Musashi knew better. He knew that the moment you stop learning, you start to stagnate. Success isn't just about what you achieve, it's about how you keep growing. But here's the real beauty of it, when you embrace continuous learning, you start to see the world through a different lens. Challenges, setbacks, and even failures no longer feel like insurmountable obstacles. Instead, they become invitations to learn, to explore, and to grow. Musashi understood that the only true way to master something, anything, was by seeing it through a student's eyes, always curious, always eager to refine. And let's not forget about the importance of being versatile. Musashi's learning wasn't confined to one narrow path. He understood that success isn't just about excelling in one thing, it's about becoming well-rounded, adaptable. It's about being able to switch from one approach to another, depending on the situation. In today's world, we can learn a lot from this kind of adaptability. Our success isn't necessarily found in being the best at just one thing. It's found in our ability to pick up new skills, new ideas, and adapt them to the ever-changing world around us. So, how do we embrace continuous learning the way Musashi did? It's simple, really. Stay curious, stay humble, and stay open to the lessons that life, in all its forms, offers. Keep evolving. Keep questioning. And most importantly, keep learning, because the journey is far from over. Number 3. Be adaptable in all situations. Adaptability isn't just a nice-to-have trait, it's a vital tool for navigating the unpredictable nature of life. Miyamoto Musashi, the legendary swordsman, understood this better than most. He didn't just adapt to situations, he embraced change, constantly evolving his approach to fit the environment. For him, flexibility wasn't a sign of weakness, it was a cornerstone of strength. Let's talk about how you can weave this same adaptability into your own life. Life throws curveballs, right? You think you've got everything figured out, and then bam! Something shifts. Whether it's a sudden challenge, an opportunity, or just a complete change in circumstances, Musashi teaches us that it's not the external factors that should define us. It's how we respond to them that truly matters. To be adaptable, you need to be comfortable with the fact that nothing is permanent. Things will change. You will change. And that's not only okay, it's necessary. Now, let's break this down a bit. Musashi didn't cling to one strategy or weapon. He didn't limit himself to a single way of thinking or fighting. The world is full of unpredictability, and trying to force things into a box doesn't work in the long run. Sure, it might seem safe to stick to the plan, to follow a routine. But what happens when that plan gets disrupted? When the rules you've been following no longer apply? Musashi's approach was to keep his mind open, constantly learning from the moment and adjusting accordingly. Being adaptable doesn't mean being wishy-washy or indecisive. It means having the presence of mind to quickly assess a situation, understand what's at stake, and decide how to proceed. Think of it like a tree bending in the wind. It doesn't resist the storm, it adjusts to the force around it, keeping its roots firm while allowing its branches to sway and shift. That's a powerful way to approach life, acknowledging that you can't control everything, but you can control your response. One of the key aspects of adaptability is maintaining a sense of detachment. It's easy to get attached to a specific outcome, especially when you've put in a lot of effort. But Musashi knew that attachment to a single idea or expectation could lead to failure. The moment you cling to a particular path, you might miss the opportunities that lie on the other side. Being adaptable means recognizing when it's time to let go of what's no longer serving you and move towards something that fits better with the reality in front of you. And let's talk about perception for a second. The ability to perceive things as they truly are, rather than how you wish them to be, is central to being adaptable. Musashi wasn't just reacting to his circumstances, he was observing, analyzing, and reading the environment around him. When you can see things clearly, you're not just reacting from a place of fear or impulse. You're responding from a place of understanding. And that's the key to adaptability. You can't adjust if you don't truly understand what's going on. Another piece of adaptability is knowing when to move fast and when to pause. Musashi wasn't just about being quick on his feet, he also understood that sometimes the best action was no action at all. The world isn't always screaming for you to act immediately. Sometimes, the most powerful move is to wait, to allow the dust to settle, and then step forward with clarity. This isn't about indecisiveness, it's about making your moves count. When you're adaptable, you're never locked into a single approach. You have the freedom to change course whenever it makes sense. At its core, adaptability is a mindset. It's about being open to learning, ready to adjust, and not being too proud or stubborn to shift when needed. It's the ability to stay grounded in your principles while being flexible with your methods. Musashi wasn't just a great warrior because of his skill with a sword, he was great because he understood the ebb and flow of life, how to adapt his strategy to fit each unique moment. So, the next time you find yourself facing a new challenge, instead of clinging to the old ways, take a moment to ask yourself, how can I adjust? What can I learn from this situation? If you embrace adaptability, you'll find that you're not just surviving, you're thriving. Number 4, trust in your abilities and instincts. When you're standing at the edge, facing a challenge that feels bigger than you, it's easy to doubt yourself. But Miyamoto Musashi, master swordsman, strategist, and philosopher, would tell you, trust in your abilities and instincts. Sounds simple, right? But let's unpack that idea, because it's much deeper than just a surface-level pep talk. We all have moments of uncertainty. We've all been in situations where the stakes feel high, and the pressure seems overwhelming. It's in those moments that Musashi's wisdom shines through. He understood that no matter how skilled you are, no matter how much preparation you've done, there comes a time when you have to trust what you've built within yourself. There's only so much you can plan for. At some point, it's up to you to rely on your instincts, on the inner knowing that has been shaped by your experience. Trusting your abilities doesn't mean arrogance or blind confidence. It's not about thinking you know everything or pretending you have all the answers. It's about recognizing that you've put in the work, that you've honed your skills over time, and that you've developed a deep understanding of the path you're walking. It's knowing, on a gut level, that you're capable of handling whatever comes your way. This trust isn't built overnight. It's cultivated through experience, through showing up, and through pushing through the hard times when things don't go according to plan. The more you face obstacles and overcome them, the more you reinforce that inner trust. It's like building a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it becomes. And when the moment of truth arrives, when you have to make that split-second decision, when there's no time to hesitate, your instincts will guide you, and that trust will carry you through. There's also something deeply freeing about trusting yourself. Think about it. When you're constantly second-guessing yourself, it creates a kind of mental chaos. You're constantly juggling doubts, trying to predict every possible outcome, worrying about what could go wrong. But when you trust your abilities, you free yourself from that endless cycle of overthinking. You stop waiting for permission, stop looking for external validation, and instead, you lean into your own power. You know you have what it takes to make it through, so you act with confidence and clarity. Now, I'll be honest, trusting yourself doesn't mean you won't make mistakes. Musashi knew this. He wasn't perfect, none of us are. But the key isn't how you handle those mistakes. If you trust yourself, you'll bounce back quicker. You won't dwell on failures because you know that each misstep is just part of the process. It's a lesson, not a defeat. You'll have the resilience to adapt and learn, which is far more valuable than avoiding mistakes altogether. Instincts, too, are more than just gut feelings. They're the result of years of learning, observing, and adapting. Your instincts are shaped by everything you've experienced, all the knowledge you've accumulated, and every challenge you've faced. So when Musashi talks about trusting your instincts, it's not some mystical, intangible idea. It's about trusting the deep well of wisdom you've gathered, the insights that come from knowing something at an almost subconscious level. Your instincts are your inner compass, guiding you even when the path isn't clear. Sometimes, trusting yourself also means being willing to take risks. It's easy to play it safe, to stick with what's familiar, especially when things feel uncertain. But Musashi's whole approach to life was about stepping into the unknown with confidence. He wasn't afraid of the fight, even when the odds were stacked against him, because he knew that his abilities, his training, and his instincts would carry him through. He trusted that even if he couldn't predict every outcome, he could handle whatever came his way. So, how do you actually develop this trust? It starts with self-reflection and a commitment to growth. Be honest with yourself about your strengths and weaknesses. Face your fears, acknowledge your doubts, and then take action anyway. Every small win you achieve, every time you push past your comfort zone, you build more trust in yourself. And over time, that trust will become an unshakable foundation. You'll stop asking whether you're ready because you'll know, deep down, that you are. In the end, trusting in your abilities and instincts is about more than just confidence, it's about knowing that you are enough. Musashi understood this. He wasn't afraid to trust himself, to act decisively, to follow his own path even when others doubted him. And that's the kind of trust we can all learn to cultivate, trust in the skills we've developed, trust in our own judgment, and trust in our ability to navigate whatever challenges come our way. When you trust yourself, you unlock a kind of power that no one can take away. Number 5. Focus on the present moment. When you think about success, one of the most underrated elements is the ability to truly focus on the present moment. It's easy to get caught up in the whirlwind of what's next, what's coming, and all the things we think we need to do. But Musashi, the the legendary swordsman, understood something vital that we often overlook: the present moment is all we really have. He wasn't thinking about his next battle during a duel, nor was he dwelling on past mistakes. His mind was fully immersed in the here and now. It's crazy how often we slip into autopilot. We go through the motions, distracted by the endless noise of the future or the shadow of the past. Yet, the only real power we have is what we can do right now. Musashi didn't wait for the perfect time to strike or hope that conditions would align. He acted decisively, without hesitation, because he understood that the present moment is where true action happens. So, what does it mean to focus on the present moment, and why is it so crucial for success? First off, it's about giving your undivided attention to what's in front of you. Whether it's a task at hand, a conversation, or even the smallest decision, the moment you're in holds the power to shape the future. Musashi didn't let himself get distracted by the idea of victory. He didn't obsess over how the battle might turn out. His attention was locked on the current fight. And it's in that focus that his skill was honed. Each swing of the sword, each shift in stance, each breath was deliberate and calculated, not lost in thought about what was coming next. Here's the thing: when you focus on the present, you become more attuned to the subtleties around you. You start to notice things you'd otherwise miss. Musashi wasn't just good with a sword, he was observant, aware of every detail in his environment. He knew that distractions could be his undoing. So, he learned to silence the mental noise, tuning his focus entirely on what was happening now. That kind of concentration is a superpower, especially when you're trying to achieve something big. It doesn't matter how many hours you spend grinding toward a goal, if your mind is constantly wandering to what's next or ruminating on what's past, you'll miss the opportunity to make meaningful progress in the present moment. It's not just about paying attention either, it's about being present. We talk a lot about mindfulness these days, but what Musashi was doing was essentially living it. He wasn't sitting down to meditate in a traditional sense, but his life was an ongoing practice of staying grounded, staying in the moment. It's a mindset that asks, what's the most important thing I can do right now? And then, instead of getting distracted by a million possibilities, he chose one thing to pour his energy into. That's how you achieve mastery. You can't get distracted by every shiny object in the room. You have to pick the one thing that demands your attention and go all in. Being in the present moment doesn't mean being reckless or ignoring the future entirely. Musashi, of course, planned ahead and strategized. But his true power came from knowing how to execute his plan in the now. When you're so focused on the task before you, the future takes care of itself. It's about giving your best effort now, trusting that it will ripple out into the next step. Success doesn't come from constantly stressing about the next milestone, it comes from the consistency and energy you pour into today. And let's talk about the internal side of things. Focusing on the present means that you're not letting past failures, mistakes, or regrets weigh you down. Musashi knew that dwelling on what's gone doesn't help. What matters is how you respond right now. If you've messed up, learn from it and then let it go. Focus on how to improve, how to do things better, right now. That's how progress happens. The moment you let the past or future control your mind, you lose the ability to act with clarity. Think about this: when you're in the present, you're not just focusing on your actions, but also on your reactions. Musashi's ability to stay calm, to stay focused in the heat of battle, is a perfect example of this. He wasn't letting emotions or external distractions dictate his moves. When you're calm and focused on what's right in front of you, you're able to make better decisions, not driven by anxiety or stress, but by clear thinking. That's what sets apart those who succeed from those who falter. So, how do you start focusing on the present like Musashi? It's about bringing your mind back, again and again, when it starts to wander. It's about training yourself to be fully immersed in whatever you're doing. Whether it's a work task, a conversation, or a goal you're working toward, give it your complete attention. Don't just do it, be in it. That's when you unlock your full potential. The present moment is all you've got, and if you master it, success will follow. Number 6, develop patience and timing. Patience. It's one of those virtues that gets talked about a lot but doesn't always get practiced enough. Miyamoto Musashi, the swordsman who carved out a legacy through skill, strategy, and insight, understood something that many of us forget in today's fast-paced world. Patience isn't just about waiting, it's about timing. And timing, well, timing is everything. Think about it for a second. We live in an age where everything seems urgent. The clock's always ticking, deadlines are always looming, and everyone's rushing to get ahead. But Musashi's approach was different. He didn't rush to swing his sword, and he didn't rush into decisions. He understood that sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is wait, patiently, calmly, and with purpose. And when the time was right, when the moment revealed itself, he moved with precision. But patience doesn't mean passivity. Far from it. It's not about sitting back and hoping things fall into place. No, patience, in Musashi's world, was active. It was about preparing, observing, and learning while the world moved around you. It's like waiting for the perfect wave to surf. It's not about lazily waiting for the wave to come to you, but positioning yourself so when it does arrive, you can ride it with grace and skill. That's the kind of patience Musashi embodied. Let's talk about timing for a minute. You can be the most prepared, the most skilled, the most knowledgeable person in the room, but if your timing is off, it's all for nothing. Musashi didn't just wait for the right moment, he created it. He understood when to act and, just as importantly, when not to act. Timing is the balance between knowing when to pounce and when to pull back. In every moment, there's an opportunity, but the window of that opportunity can be short. Musashi knew how to sense that window. He knew that sometimes, the best strategy was to wait until his opponent made the first move. And here's where it gets interesting. Developing patience isn't about just sitting still. It's about observing, learning, and growing in the moments of stillness. How do you develop the instinct to know the perfect time? You spend time in quiet, watching. You notice the small shifts around you. You learn the rhythm of life. When you're patient, you're not passive, you're keenly aware, constantly assessing what's happening around you, and getting ready to take action when it's necessary. The art of patience is rooted in the ability to recognize that action can't be rushed. Think of patience as a form of inner discipline. The kind that teaches you to breathe, to stay centered, and to resist the urge to rush into things. Musashi was never hasty in battle. He wasn't trying to win by overwhelming his opponents with speed. No, his battles were about precision, hitting at the exact moment when the opponent was least prepared. And that's where timing comes in. You see, timing isn't just about when you do something, it's also about how long you hold back before you strike. In life, much like in battle, the perfect moment doesn't announce itself with fireworks or trumpets. It's subtle, quiet, and often fleeting. If you don't develop patience, you miss it. There's another layer to this. Patience doesn't just apply to actions, it applies to your progress. We all want results, right? But the truth is, achieving anything worth achieving takes time. Musashi didn't expect to become the master he was overnight. He understood that mastery was a slow, steady process, and rushing it would only lead to mistakes. Patience is about trusting the process. It's about committing to long-term growth, even when things don't seem to be moving as quickly as you'd like. The real power of patience is in the moment before you act. It's the calm before the storm, the silence in between the breaths. Musashi mastered this space. He didn't allow his emotions or impulses to dictate his actions. Instead, he created a space where his mind could process, analyze, and move with the perfect timing. In this space, he was always in control. Patience and timing go hand in hand. Without one, the other is useless. If you're too quick to act, you'll miss the opportunities that require a delicate approach. But if you wait too long, the moment passes you by. Musashi's genius was in his ability to navigate this delicate balance with grace. He didn't just react to life's events, he felt them, understood their rhythm, and moved in harmony with them. So, what does this mean for you? Start by cultivating patience in your daily life. Don't rush to the next step, the next goal, or the next opportunity. Take the time to truly assess where you are and what you need. Watch, listen, and learn. When you do act, do it with purpose and precision, understanding that every step you take will bring you closer to your goals, but only if you take it at the right time. Number 7. Use strategy to outsmart opponents. When Musashi talks about using strategy to outsmart opponents, he's not just talking about some clever trick or a quick fix. No, he's diving into something far deeper, the art of thinking several steps ahead, of outwitting and outmaneuvering your competition without ever having to break a sweat. Strategy, in Musashi's world, isn't just about being the strongest or the fastest, it's about being the smartest. It's about turning the tables in your favor when it seems like the odds are stacked against you. Think about it. Success isn't always about raw power or brute force. Often, it's about your ability to think strategically, to understand not just what's in front of you but what's coming next. It's about seeing the bigger picture and then positioning yourself in a way that makes your opponent's next move irrelevant. This is where Musashi's brilliance lies. He was never just reacting, he was anticipating, calculating, and maneuvering. His entire approach to combat was built on a foundation of strategy, and he used that to stay one step ahead, whether he was facing one person or an entire group. Now, let's break this down. When you're in any situation, whether it's in business, personal challenges, or even in a heated debate, you can't just go in with your guns blazing. That's a recipe for disaster. Musashi would say you need to take a step back, assess the situation, and understand your opponent's strengths and weaknesses. The goal is to find leverage, an opening, a flaw, or an opportunity that your opponent isn't aware of or isn't fully exploiting. It's about playing the long game, not rushing headfirst into a battle without understanding the consequences. You see, strategy isn't just about finding the right move, it's about controlling the environment around you. It's about setting the stage where you dictate the terms. By understanding the dynamics of the situation, whether it's physical, emotional, or intellectual, you can set yourself up for success without forcing it. In Musashi's mind, this was the essence of true mastery. It's not just about what you can do, but what you can make others do, often without them even realizing it. One of the most interesting things about using strategy is that it often doesn't require direct confrontation. Musashi was known for his ability to make his opponents doubt themselves. He could create confusion or cause hesitation, turning the tide of the battle without ever laying a finger on his opponent. That's the power of strategy. It's not about overpowering your opponent physically, but about getting inside their head, making them second-guess their decisions, or even forcing them to make mistakes. This is why preparation and patience are so important in strategic thinking. It's not about rushing to make a move, it's about waiting for the right moment, the one where your opponent's defenses are down and your plan can take effect. There's also an element of unpredictability in strategy. Musashi understood that if you always follow the same pattern, your opponent will eventually catch on and counter your moves. So, he made it a point to mix things up, to keep his opponents guessing. If you always play by the same rules, people will learn them and use that knowledge against you. But when you embrace the unexpected, when you move in ways that defy expectation, you throw your opponents off balance. They're forced to react to you, instead of the other way around. And that's a huge advantage. But strategy isn't just about outsmarting your opponent, it's also about understanding your own limitations and strengths. Musashi wasn't just playing the game of outwitting others, he was also in constant self-assessment. He knew when to fight and when to retreat, when to press forward and when to wait. Recognizing your own position in the broader picture allows you to make smarter choices and avoid unnecessary risks. It's not about being invincible, it's about being flexible and adaptable, knowing when to push forward and when to pull back. At its core, using strategy to outsmart your opponents is about creating opportunities where others see none. It's about being the one who can turn a situation around with just a slight shift in approach, a different perspective, or a well-timed move. It's about seeing things that others don't, and then using that insight to your advantage. When you embrace strategy, you step away from the reactive and move into the realm of the proactive, where you control the game, not the other way around. In the end, it's not the biggest or the strongest who win. It's the ones who can think strategically, outmaneuvering their opponents with finesse and precision. Musashi knew this better than anyone. His genius lay not in raw power, but in his ability to anticipate, outthink, and outmaneuver those who came up against him. And that's something we can all apply to our own lives, whether in business, relationships, or personal challenges. Strategy is about thinking ahead, playing the long game, and using your mind to outwit your competition every time. Number 8. Prioritize clarity of mind. When you think of someone who achieves mastery, it's not just their physical ability that sets them apart, but their mental clarity. Musashi, the legendary swordsman, understood this better than most. He wasn't just sharp with a sword, he was sharp with his mind, too. And that's the core of success, clarity of mind. If your mind is clouded with doubt, distractions, or negative emotions, even the best strategies won't work. But when your mind is clear, you can see the path forward, make better decisions, and act with precision. Imagine trying to make a critical decision while your thoughts are all over the place. It's like trying to find your way through a fog. You might be moving, but you're not really sure where you're going. Musashi, on the other hand, didn't let that fog settle in. He had a mental discipline that allowed him to stay sharp and focused, no matter the chaos around him. In fact, he actively cultivated this mental clarity, recognizing that without it, everything else, his skill with a sword, his strategy, his ability to adapt, would be useless. So, how do you create this clarity of mind? First off, it's about eliminating the unnecessary noise. In today's world, distractions are everywhere. There's always something pulling our attention away, whether it's the ping of a notification or the pressure of 100 things that need to be done. Musashi's approach was simple: cut through the distractions. When you're constantly bombarded with external noise, your internal voice gets drowned out, and you lose the ability to think clearly. So, clearing your mind isn't just about calming your thoughts, it's about getting rid of anything that takes away from what truly matters. But it's not only about eliminating distractions, it's also about training your mind to focus. Musashi didn't simply hope for mental clarity to come to him, he worked at it, consistently. He trained his mind the same way he trained his body, by focusing, by being intentional. Every action, every thought, every movement was done with purpose. That level of intention is what brings clarity. It's easy to get swept away in the whirlwind of everything that's happening, but the true power lies in your ability to pull yourself out of that storm, center yourself, and focus on what matters right now. Another aspect of clarity of mind is letting go of unnecessary baggage. Musashi didn't hold on to past failures or victories. He didn't cling to beliefs or strategies that no longer served him. Instead, he adapted and moved forward. A cluttered mind, full of past regrets or future anxieties, can paralyze you. When you're constantly looking back, you miss what's right in front of you. Musashi understood that in order to perform at his best, he needed to keep his mind clear of the weight of yesterday and not be overly concerned with what might come tomorrow. This doesn't mean ignoring lessons from the past or not planning for the future. It means keeping your mind uncluttered, so you can act decisively when the time comes. Let's not forget about the emotional side of things. Emotions can cloud your judgment, no matter how skilled you are in your craft. Musashi knew that a calm, composed mind was crucial to effective decision-making, especially in high-stress situations. It's easy to let fear, frustration, or anger dictate your actions, but those emotions are often rooted in insecurity or lack of control. To be mentally clear, you need to understand your emotions, not let them control you. This doesn't mean suppressing them, it means recognizing them and then choosing to move forward with clarity, regardless of how you feel. Clarity of mind also allows for better adaptability. Musashi wasn't rigid in his approach to combat. He understood that each situation required a different response, and his clear mind enabled him to pivot, adjust, and adapt without hesitation. Success is rarely a straight line. Things change, obstacles pop up, and the unexpected happens. When your mind is clear, you're able to navigate those twists and turns without losing your direction. You're able to assess what's happening in the moment and decide on the best course of action, without being clouded by stress or indecision. So, how can you start prioritizing clarity of mind in your own life? Begin with small moments of discipline. Maybe it's taking a few minutes each day to center yourself, quiet the noise, and focus on your breath. Maybe it's committing to fewer distractions, allowing yourself to truly engage with what's in front of you. It's also about acknowledging when your mind is getting overwhelmed and making a conscious effort to pull back, refocus, and reset. Just like any skill, clarity of mind takes practice. But when you prioritize it, when you commit to mental discipline, you unlock a level of focus and effectiveness that can carry you through even the toughest challenges. In the end, Musashi's greatness wasn't just about his physical prowess, it was about his mental sharpness. By prioritizing clarity of mind, you put yourself in a position to make better decisions, act more decisively, and navigate life with greater ease. So clear the fog, center your thoughts, and watch as your path forward becomes crystal clear. Number 9. Learn from every failure. Failure. It's one of those things that everyone hates, but no one can avoid. Musashi, the legendary swordsman, didn't just accept failure as part of life, he saw it as a powerful teacher. For him, failure wasn't a roadblock, it was a stepping stone, a lesson waiting to be uncovered. It's easy to view failure as something to be feared or avoided, but Musashi knew better. He saw it for what it truly was, an opportunity to grow, to refine, and to come back stronger. Now, let's be clear. Musashi wasn't suggesting that we go out and embrace failure just for the sake of it. That would be a bit ridiculous. But he did understand that failure, when approached with the right mindset, can be a goldmine of insight. It's like a mirror that reflects not only the mistakes you made but also the areas where you can improve. The key, though, is in how you look at it. When you fail, it's easy to get caught up in the emotional whirlpool, self-doubt, frustration, embarrassment. But Musashi had a different approach. He didn't dwell on the emotional aftermath. Instead, he focused on what he could learn from the experience. It wasn't about beating yourself up or lamenting what went wrong. It was about digging into the experience and figuring out why things didn't work out as planned. What happened? What went wrong? Where was the misstep? In the failure, there was clarity, but only if you were willing to look for it. One of the reasons failure can be so powerful is that it strips away the illusions we sometimes have about our abilities. When everything is going well, it's easy to think we've got it all figured out. But failure brings us back to earth. It forces us to face the reality of where we actually stand, free from all the self-deception. Musashi, in his wisdom, knew that this was one of the greatest gifts failure could offer, the chance to assess our true capabilities and understand the gaps that exist between where we are and where we want to be. It's also worth mentioning that failure teaches patience. In the midst of failure, we're often in a hurry to fix things, to get back on track, to prove that we're capable. But Musashi understood that the path to mastery takes time, and failure is part of that process. When you fail, it doesn't mean you're doomed, it simply means that you're not there yet. And that's okay. The key is to learn from each failure, refine your approach, and keep moving forward. Every time you fall, you're not just getting closer to success, you're building resilience. You're learning how to stand up, dust yourself off, and try again. But the learning doesn't stop with just identifying the mistake. Musashi wasn't the type to simply acknowledge failure and then move on. He believed in actively analyzing the situation, breaking it down, and figuring out how to avoid making the same mistake again. This requires a level of honesty that many people struggle with. It's easy to blame external factors or circumstances when things don't go as planned, but true growth comes when you take responsibility for your part in the outcome. Musashi's approach wasn't about finding someone or something to blame. It was about looking inward and asking, what can I do better next time? The beauty of failure, when handled correctly, is that it can be a guide for future success. Musashi didn't view failure as an endpoint. He didn't let it define him. Instead, he used each failure as fuel for improvement. Each failure became a lesson that sharpened his sword, metaphorically speaking. And that's something we can all learn from. So, when you fail, and trust me, don't just sweep it under the rug or try to pretend it didn't happen. Embrace it. Analyze it. See what you can learn from it, and use that knowledge to improve. Don't let the sting of failure paralyze you. Let it fuel your growth. Because every time you fail, you're just a little bit closer to getting it right. In the end, Musashi's message was clear: failure isn't something to avoid. It's something to learn from. And the more you embrace that mindset, the more you'll grow, not just in skill, but in resilience and wisdom. Failure doesn't mark the end of the road, it's simply a detour on the way to something greater. Number 10. Cultivate mental and physical discipline. Miyamoto Musashi was all about discipline. Not just any discipline, though, mental and physical discipline. If you want to succeed in any area of life, whether it's business, personal development, or even just trying to get better at something, you've got to have that same unshakable focus. Musashi lived and breathed this kind of commitment, and it was a cornerstone of his success. He didn't rely on temporary bursts of energy or momentary motivation. No, his whole approach was about building habits, routines, and systems that reinforced his discipline every single day. Let's talk about what discipline actually means here. When we hear the word, we often think about restriction, about forcing ourselves to do things we don't feel like doing. But true discipline, the kind Musashi is referring to, isn't about punishment. It's about the ability to stay focused on what matters, to keep pushing yourself even when things get tough. It's about taking control over your actions, your thoughts, and your impulses, aligning them all with your bigger vision. To cultivate mental discipline, you have to learn how to train your mind to stay calm, focused, and unshaken, even when the world around you is chaotic. You have to be able to step back and evaluate your emotions, your thoughts, and your reactions before you act on them. Musashi was a master at this, and it's something he practiced rigorously. When he stepped into a challenge, whether that was a duel or a strategic move in his life, his mind was clear, sharp, and calm. He didn't let his emotions cloud his judgment. And this isn't easy, especially when the pressure is on. But that's the power of mental discipline, the ability to stay composed and make decisions that align with your long-term goals, not just what feels good in the moment. Now, physical discipline is just as important. It's not enough to have a strong mind without a body that can keep up. For Musashi, every movement mattered. Every action he took had to be purposeful, controlled, and effective. Physical discipline isn't just about fitness or being strong in the traditional sense, it's about being able to maintain your physical energy, health, and resilience so that you can keep pushing, day in and day out. Musashi didn't wait for motivation to strike. He didn't rely on a burst of inspiration to fuel his actions. Instead, he set routines, practiced endlessly, and developed a level of endurance that allowed him to keep going when others couldn't. The same goes for us. Discipline means showing up when you don't feel like it. It means staying consistent even when you're tired, frustrated, or when the progress doesn't seem immediate. And that's what makes it so powerful. It's the ability to keep moving forward when everyone else is looking for an excuse to quit. Here's the thing about discipline, it's contagious. When you start showing up every day, when you set standards for yourself and stick to them, it starts to affect every area of your life. It doesn't just help you stay consistent with your work or goals, it strengthens your willpower and shapes your character. Over time, you become the kind of person who doesn't shy away from challenges. You become someone who's comfortable with discomfort, someone who embraces the grind because you know it's part of the process. But let's be real for a second, discipline can feel tough. It's easy to get distracted, to let yourself slack off when there's no one around to hold you accountable. That's why Musashi's approach was so effective. He understood that discipline needs to be woven into the fabric of your daily life. It's not something you turn on and off, it's a constant. Whether it's keeping your body in top shape, sticking to a routine, or training your mind to focus, the more you make discipline a part of your everyday life, the more natural it becomes. Musashi also understood that discipline isn't just about doing the hard things. It's about doing the right things, consistently. It's about aligning your actions with your vision and staying true to that path, even when distractions or temptations arise. He wasn't just disciplined for the sake of discipline, he had a purpose behind every action, every practice session, and every decision he made. He knew that the small, seemingly insignificant things, like showing up on time, practicing your skills every day, or staying focused during tough times, are what ultimately add up to create massive success. Cultivating mental and physical discipline, then, isn't a quick fix. It's a long-term commitment to yourself. It's about building habits that will carry you through even when you're not feeling motivated. And as Musashi showed through his life, that kind of discipline doesn't just make you better at what you do, it makes you better as a person. It shapes your character, your mindset, and your approach to every challenge that comes your way. When you've got both mental and physical discipline, you can tackle anything with a level of strength and resilience that most people can't even imagine. And that's the true power of Musashi's philosophy. And that's a wrap on the 10 timeless strategies for success from Miyamoto Musashi. These principles aren't just for warriors, they're for anyone seeking to overcome obstacles and achieve greatness in life. Remember, success comes from constant refinement, discipline, and adaptability. If you found these strategies valuable, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this with someone who could benefit from a boost on their journey. Keep applying these lessons, and take action every single day. Until next time, stay sharp, stay relentless, and always strive for mastery. Did you know that Miyamoto Musashi, one of history's greatest warriors, believed that overthinking was one of the biggest obstacles to success? In fact, he mastered the art of taking swift, decisive action, even in the heat of battle. If you've ever found yourself stuck in a loop of overthinking, then today's video is for you. I'm going to break down Musashi's most powerful strategies for overcoming indecision and taking bold action now. No more hesitation, no more second guessing. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to stop overthinking and start moving forward with confidence. Stick around till the end for the game-changing tactics that will revolutionize the way you approach any challenge. Number 1. Embrace simplicity. It's tempting to think that the more complicated something is, the more impressive or impactful it must be. You know that feeling when you're staring at a mountain of tasks or decisions and you just can't figure out where to start? It's easy to convince ourselves that if we just map out every detail, we'll somehow avoid failure or at least know exactly what to do. But here's the thing, Musashi would probably tell you to stop overthinking and simplify. Simplicity, in the world of strategy and life, isn't about cutting corners or avoiding hard work. It's about stripping away the clutter, those distractions and unnecessary details that end up confusing us more than helping. Musashi, in his book of 5 Rings, talks about how clarity comes when we focus on what's essential. That's where real action starts. Think about it, the more layers you add, the more chances there are for missteps. You start second-guessing, overanalyzing, and in the process, you lose the very clarity you need to move forward. Simplicity isn't the absence of complexity, it's a clear path through it. When you embrace simplicity, you're not saying that things won't get difficult, you're just saying you'll tackle them without all the extra mental baggage. This idea of simplifying also feeds into a bigger mindset, action over perfection. We've all fallen into the trap of waiting until everything is just right. We think we need that perfect plan, the ideal set of circumstances. But guess what? Perfection never comes. And waiting around for it can stall us indefinitely. Musashi himself didn't wait for the perfect moment to strike, he moved decisively, and sometimes with imperfect information, because he knew that the process of simplifying and taking action brought clarity. Simplicity is like clearing away a fog so you can see the path ahead. When you remove all the extraneous stuff, what you're left with is your real objective. It's easier to get lost in details, in possibilities, in what-ifs. But when you embrace simplicity, you focus on the one thing that truly matters. Here's a powerful thing to remember, when you're too busy considering every little factor, you end up stuck in analysis paralysis. You look at a problem from so many angles that you end up not doing anything at all. But when you decide to simplify, you don't need to know every answer right away. You trust that by acting, you'll learn and adapt as you go. And this isn't about being reckless. It's about making choices quickly, without getting bogged down in doubt. It's about recognizing that not every choice will be perfect, and that's okay. Musashi didn't overthink his approach, he acted decisively and learned from his actions, adjusting when necessary. In embracing simplicity, you also embrace a kind of freedom. Freedom from overthinking. Freedom from self-doubt. Instead of focusing on every possible outcome and getting lost in scenarios, you focus on what you can do now. You take the next step. It's about the courage to move forward with confidence, knowing that even if the road ahead is rough, the act of simplifying clears the way to take action. And yes, sometimes simplicity is misunderstood as laziness or carelessness. But it's far from that. Musashi didn't waste time with things that wouldn't contribute to his goal. He focused on the basics, what was essential, and made sure that each move served a purpose. Simplicity doesn't mean taking shortcuts. It means removing distractions and honing in on what truly matters. So next time you find yourself overwhelmed, stop. Take a step back. Clear the clutter, and then act. The results will speak for themselves. Number 2, focus on what's important. When it comes to overthinking, one of the most powerful tools in the world is the ability to focus on what truly matters. You've probably been there, stuck in your head, endlessly analyzing every little detail, trying to anticipate every outcome. It can feel like you're stuck in a loop, each thought compounding on the last, creating more confusion instead of clarity. This is where the teachings of Miyamoto Musashi come in, especially his principle of focusing on what's important. It's not just about identifying what matters, it's about removing everything that doesn't. Musashi was known for his razor-sharp focus in battle, but that same focus can be applied to all areas of life. Overthinking often arises from a lack of clarity about what's important, leading us to get lost in a sea of trivialities. You end up questioning every choice, second-guessing yourself, and delaying decisions. Musashi would argue that this is the perfect way to lose sight of your goal. He believed that to truly succeed, whether in combat or life, you must eliminate distractions. That means tuning out the noise and zeroing in on what's crucial for your progress. Think about it this way: every minute spent pondering unnecessary details is a minute lost. Inaction isn't neutral, it's progress moving backward. Musashi would probably tell you that every time you stall, you're giving up control to indecision. It's easy to fall into this trap because, in a world that's always moving at 100 miles per hour, it feels safer to sit and plan, to analyze every possible scenario before taking a step. But here's the kicker: you're not actually moving forward by overthinking. You're spinning your wheels in place. Now, Musashi wasn't saying you should act recklessly or without thought. What he's really pointing to is a kind of decisive clarity. When you focus only on what's important, you naturally eliminate the fluff, the worries, the doubts, the distractions. This clarity leads to better action, because when you know what really needs your attention, your decisions become sharper, quicker, and more aligned with your goals. You stop getting lost in unnecessary mental labyrinths and start cutting through them like a samurai's sword. So, how do you apply this principle to your life? First, get crystal clear on your priorities. It might sound simple, but you'd be amazed at how many people walk through life without ever really taking the time to define what truly matters to them. Once you know where your focus should lie, everything else fades into the background. It's like suddenly switching from a blurry image to something in high definition. The distractions that once consumed your energy just don't seem as important anymore. Next, learn to trust yourself. Overthinking often stems from a deep-seated fear of making mistakes. But here's the thing: mistakes aren't the enemy. They're part of the process. Musashi wasn't perfect, and he didn't expect perfection from himself or others. What mattered most was that he acted decisively, even in the face of uncertainty. So, trust that by focusing on what's important, you'll make the right moves, even if they're not always perfect. Sometimes, clarity comes through action, not contemplation. Finally, remember that less is more. Musashi mastered the art of simplicity. He didn't waste time on excessive strategies, and he didn't get bogged down by every possible outcome. He cut through the clutter and went straight to the heart of the matter. In your life, this means narrowing your focus to the tasks and decisions that truly align with your vision. The rest? Let it go. By focusing on what's important, you free yourself from the shackles of overthinking. You gain the mental space to take bold, decisive action. It's about stripping away everything that doesn't serve your mission. Musashi's wisdom reminds us that clarity is power, and that power is best wielded through decisive, focused action. Number 3. Trust your instincts. When it comes to trusting your instincts, it's easy to feel like you're stepping into unknown territory. You might hesitate, second-guess yourself, or even try to logic your way through every little decision. But Musashi, the legendary warrior and strategist, would say that the best way to move forward, especially when overthinking holds you back, is to trust the gut feeling that rises within you. It's like a whisper in your mind that cuts through all the noise. Now, Musashi wasn't the type to waste time. He didn't sit around overanalyzing his next move. He knew that waiting for all the stars to align or for perfect clarity was a road to nowhere. So, he relied on his instincts. But here's the catch: trusting your instincts isn't just about acting on impulse. It's not about jumping into something because it feels good in the moment. It's about learning to recognize that quiet voice inside, the one that's been built from all your experiences, knowledge, and the many lessons you've absorbed throughout your life. It's deeper than mere guesswork or a quick decision. Think about it: your instincts are a result of everything you've seen, heard, and learned over time. It's not random. So why question it? The longer you wait, the more you start drowning in uncertainty. You build up layers of doubt, hesitation, and fear. But the truth is, all that thinking rarely makes the decision clearer. Sometimes, it just muddies the water. Musashi would say, "Do not seek to follow in the footsteps of the wise. Seek what they sought." In other words, stop looking for permission to act. The action itself is where growth happens. When you trust your instincts, you're acknowledging that you have the power to decide. And yes, sometimes the outcome might not be what you expected, but at least you took action. Musashi understood this well. He knew that hesitation was the true enemy of progress. So, how do you tap into this inner knowing? First, you have to let go of perfection. There's no such thing. Perfection is a moving target, always just out of reach. Instead, take what you know, trust your senses, and move forward with confidence. It's like a muscle. The more you trust it, the stronger it becomes. You stop waiting for the perfect moment because you realize it never really comes. The only perfect moment is now. And let's talk about the fear, that little voice that tries to sabotage your instincts. It's normal. Fear often steps in when you're about to break free from your comfort zone. But Musashi would tell you, fear is just a shadow. It doesn't define you, and it doesn't control you unless you let it. So, when that feeling of doubt creeps up, acknowledge it, but don't let it take the reins. Focus on what you know, and trust that you've got the wisdom to handle whatever comes your way. Sometimes, the greatest action you can take is simply deciding to move. And in that movement, you'll find clarity. As Musashi would put it, it's the sword that cuts, not the sheath. Your instincts are your sword. Don't let them rust by leaving them in the sheath. Trust them, use them, and let them guide you. Because when you take action, that's where the magic happens. Trust your instincts, not because you know exactly how things will turn out, but because you have faith in your ability to handle whatever unfolds. And when you do, you'll realize that the more you trust, the more your path becomes clear. Number 4, take action. Don't wait for perfection. Here's the truth. You're never going to have everything perfectly lined up, no matter how much you wait or plan. Perfection is a myth. It's the kind of thing that feels just out of reach, like you're chasing a horizon. The more you chase, the farther away it seems. And while you're focused on trying to make everything just right, the opportunity to act slips by. So, what's the alternative? The answer is simple: stop waiting for perfection and just take action. Musashi was all about decisive moves. He didn't sit around crafting the perfect plan, waiting for some magical moment to strike. No, he acted with what he had. He understood that hesitation was the enemy of progress, and waiting for everything to be flawless was a surefire way to remain stuck. When you take action, you step out of the realm of theory and into reality. That's where things get done. It's easy to get caught in this loop, right? You spend hours, days, maybe even weeks, tweaking and adjusting, trying to find the perfect way to do something. You're trying to anticipate every possible mistake, every possible flaw, as if avoiding them will somehow make you better at it. But here's the kicker: the more you wait for perfection, the more you procrastinate. Action? Well, it gets pushed aside for later. And later never seems to come. Musashi would have told you that perfect isn't the point. Progress is. It's the ability to act now, with the knowledge and tools you have, and figure things out as you go. And here's where it gets really interesting: action brings clarity. When you take that first step, even if it feels imperfect, the path forward becomes clearer. You learn something new with every move, every choice, every misstep. And that's how you grow. Think about it. How many times have you planned and planned, only to realize later that the act of doing was what really helped you understand what was needed? It's like standing still in a storm, watching the chaos unfold around you, but never really engaging with it. But once you step into the storm, you're no longer a bystander, you're part of the experience. And through that participation, you learn, adapt, and most importantly, move forward. Waiting for perfection is a trap. It's like thinking you need a fully polished sword to win a battle. But in reality, the best way to hone your skills is to pick up the sword and use it, even if it's a bit rough around the edges at first. Musashi didn't get to where he was by waiting for the perfect moment. He honed his craft through action, by fighting, by practicing, by adjusting along the way. It's the only way to get better, and it's the only way to really learn. The thing is, perfection is subjective. What you think is perfect today might look completely different tomorrow once you've taken action. Musashi knew this. He understood that what's important isn't making every move flawless, but making each move purposeful. By acting with intention, you push through uncertainty and build the momentum you need to succeed. In the process, you find that imperfection becomes the very thing that drives improvement. Perfectionism can make you paralyze yourself with the what-ifs and what-shoulds. But if you let those questions dominate, you'll never move. You'll never get anywhere. Action, on the other hand, is about pushing through that fear of the unknown, moving forward even if you don't have all the answers. Because here's the reality, you never will. And here's another thing, when you take action, you free yourself from the grip of doubt. You stop second-guessing and start doing. Your confidence grows. It's not because you got everything right, but because you learned to trust the process, trust that moving forward, even in imperfection, is the best way to get closer to your goal. Musashi understood that action is the antidote to fear. The more you do, the less room there is for hesitation and overthinking. And that's how momentum is built. It's not built by waiting for the stars to align. It's built by stepping up, taking action, and adjusting course along the way. So, stop waiting for things to be perfect. Take that first step, even if you're not sure of the outcome. You'll find that perfection is overrated. What matters is doing. And that's where the magic happens. Number 5. Practice discipline and consistency. Discipline and consistency, these two go hand in hand, yet they're often the first things we overlook when we're stuck in the cycle of overthinking. But if we take a cue from Miyamoto Musashi, these are the very qualities that separate those who succeed from those who endlessly hesitate. It's not about one big burst of effort here and there. It's about showing up, day in and day out, no matter how much you want to bail. Musashi didn't win his battles by waiting for the perfect moment. He won because he consistently prepared, trained, and acted, even when the road ahead seemed uncertain or grueling. Here's the thing, overthinking often happens when we allow our minds to swirl in an endless loop of what-ifs and maybe-laters. It's easy to get caught up in the notion that you need everything to be perfect before you take action. But that's a trap. What's more powerful than waiting for perfection is showing up with discipline. It's taking those first steps, even when they're messy, and then continuing to walk, regardless of how you feel in the moment. Musashi understood that each step, no matter how small, brought him closer to mastery. Now, let's talk about discipline for a second. It's not about rigidly sticking to a schedule or forcing yourself to do things when you'd rather be anywhere else. True discipline, the kind Musashi embodied, is about developing a mindset of relentless focus. It's about training yourself to get comfortable with discomfort, to push through resistance, and to trust that every action, even the tough ones, is contributing to your greater goal. It's easy to feel like you'll never be ready to tackle something. But Musashi didn't wait for the perfect circumstances to take action. He created those circumstances through consistent practice. Consistency is the second part of this dynamic duo, and it's just as essential. Without consistency, even the most disciplined efforts will eventually fizzle out. The beauty of consistency lies in its power to create momentum. When you show up every day, even when the results aren't immediately visible, You build a kind of energy that propels you forward. Musashi didn't win his duels with a single, decisive strike. It was the combination of countless hours spent honing his skills, refining his technique, and adjusting to his environment that gave him the edge. He understood that success isn't born from a sudden flash of genius, but from the steady, predictable rhythm of consistent effort. When it comes to overthinking, it's often the fear of the unknown that holds us back. What if we fail? What if we mess up? But here's where discipline and consistency come to the rescue. When you adopt these principles, you train your mind to focus less on the fear of failure and more on the process itself. With every action you take, you're creating a path. And the more consistently you walk that path, the clearer it becomes. Overthinking fades because the habit of showing up and doing the work replaces it. The mind starts to trust that you don't need to have everything figured out, you just need to keep moving forward. But let's not sugarcoat it. Discipline isn't always glamorous. It's not about feeling motivated or inspired every day. It's about showing up even when you don't feel like it. Some days, the work will feel like an uphill battle. Other days, it'll feel easy. But Musashi knew that the results came not from bursts of inspiration, but from maintaining a steady, unwavering commitment to the process. This is what separates the successful from those who never move beyond their thoughts. It's about putting in the work, consistently, even when it feels like you're not seeing immediate rewards. So how do you apply this to your life? Start small. Build a routine that's sustainable. Don't aim for perfection, aim for consistency. Create habits that will support your goals and stick to them, even when it's hard. Whether it's setting aside time for practice or simply deciding that today is the day you make progress, discipline and consistency will make sure you keep moving forward. And with each step, you'll notice something remarkable. The overthinking starts to fade, and what remains is clarity in action. The secret? Musashi's success wasn't about thinking through every possible outcome, it was about developing the discipline to act, and the consistency to keep going, no matter what. So stop waiting for the perfect time or for all your fears to disappear. Practice discipline. Be consistent. And trust that this quiet, unyielding effort will take you further than all the overthinking in the world. Number 6. Eliminate distractions. When it comes to taking action, one of the biggest hurdles you'll face is the endless distractions that pop up. They come in all shapes and sizes, shiny objects, tempting detours, random thoughts that refuse to let you focus. Musashi, the master of strategy, knew better than anyone that distractions are like poison to clarity. They chip away at your energy, make your goals feel distant, and keep you stuck in that frustrating loop of indecision. But here's the thing, Musashi didn't let the world around him dictate his actions. He wasn't looking for approval or reassurance from outside forces. His focus was sharp, cutting through the noise like a katana slicing through air. If you want to make real progress, you have to cultivate that same kind of laser focus. Musashi would say that to be successful, you need to eliminate distractions and, most importantly, protect your attention. We live in a world full of noise. Every second, there's something vying for your attention. Whether it's a ping on your phone, an email notification, or just the temptation to glance at something random, it all adds up. The issue with distractions isn't just that they steal time, it's that they rob you of your power to make decisions and take action. The more you let these things pull you away from what matters, the more scattered your energy becomes. And Musashi? He wasn't about wasting energy on anything that didn't serve his purpose. But how do you even begin to eliminate distractions in such a chaotic world? It's not as simple as turning off your phone or locking yourself in a room. Distractions often come from within, thoughts, doubts, the constant chatter in your mind that tells you you're not ready or it's not the right time. Musashi understood the importance of clearing your mind, of stripping away everything that doesn't serve your immediate goal. For him, focus wasn't just about avoiding external noise, it was about mastering his own thoughts, honing them to a razor's edge. To start, you have to be honest with yourself. What are the things that constantly pull your attention? And more importantly, why do you allow them to? It's easy to point fingers at external factors, but the real challenge is in recognizing how often we let our own patterns of behavior, our desires, our fears, our need for distraction, take the wheel. It's those internal distractions that can be the hardest to deal with because they're so sneaky. They show up when you're on the verge of taking action, ready to pull you off course. Musashi would tell you, you need to get ruthless with your time. Think of distractions like weeds in a garden. If you let them grow, they'll overtake everything. But if you clear them out, your path becomes clean and clear. And here's the thing, it's not just about removing distractions. It's about creating space for what truly matters. When you get rid of the unnecessary, you make room for focus, for precision, for action. You start to see things more clearly. You stop overthinking. You act. And let's talk about this for a second. Distractions often appear because we're scared to face the task at hand. We get sidetracked because doing the real work feels heavy, intimidating, or uncertain. But this is exactly where Musashi's strategy of focus comes in. When you cut out the noise, you're forced to confront what's in front of you. It's only then that you can truly make progress. Taking action means giving your full attention to what matters in the moment, even if it's uncomfortable. Musashi would say you have to be present, wholeheartedly, unshakably present. And that requires eliminating everything that would pull you away from the task at hand. Stop juggling 1,000 thoughts at once. Stop multitasking your way through your day, thinking that by doing everything, you're accomplishing more. Focus on one thing, one step, and give it everything you've got. At the end of the day, distractions are like walls. They block your path, obscure your vision, and keep you from moving forward. Musashi would urge you to tear them down, one by one. With each distraction you eliminate, you get closer to clarity. And with that clarity, you'll find it easier to take decisive action. The path becomes simple, even if the task is complex. The key is to eliminate everything that doesn't serve your mission. Distractions are just a way of avoiding what's uncomfortable, what's difficult, but they're also what keep you from being truly powerful. So, cut them out, and focus. The rest will fall into place. Number 7, learn from every experience. Here's a thought, no matter what you do, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to stumble. You're going to feel like you've missed the mark. But that's not where the story ends. It's what comes after that counts. The real secret to progress isn't about avoiding mistakes, it's about learning from them. Musashi knew this better than anyone. He wasn't afraid to fail because he understood that every experience, good or bad, carried a lesson. And when you're moving towards something important, those lessons are exactly what you need to evolve. You see, it's easy to get caught up in the desire to always get things right. It's tempting to think that success means moving from one flawless step to the next. But, if we're being honest, that's just not how life works. Things get messy. Plans fall apart. And sometimes, you feel like you've lost ground. But in Musashi's eyes, that was all part of the process. The key wasn't avoiding failure, it was embracing it, understanding it, and using it to your advantage. When you take action, when you start moving toward your goal, you inevitably face challenges. Some of them might feel like setbacks, like you've taken one step forward only to get knocked 2 steps back. But here's the twist, every single experience you go through, whether it's a win or a loss, teaches you something new. Musashi didn't look at a defeat as something to be ashamed of. No, he saw it as a learning opportunity, a chance to sharpen his skills and strategy. And that's exactly how you should see every situation that doesn't go as planned. When you fail, it's easy to get caught up in the disappointment. You might feel like you've wasted time or effort. But rather than ruminating on what went wrong, take a step back. Reflect. What happened? Why did it happen? What can you take from this and apply to the next step? Musashi was all about reflection. He didn't just rush into the next battle. He thought about what went well and what didn't, and he adjusted accordingly. By doing this, he refined his approach and moved closer to his goal with each new lesson learned. Learning from experience also means being open to change. As you face different challenges, you're going to see that not every situation calls for the same solution. There's no universal blueprint for success. Instead, Musashi understood that flexibility was crucial. What worked once might not work again, and that's fine. The key is adapting. Every challenge, every win, every failure gives you a new perspective, a new piece of the puzzle to work with. And the more you're willing to learn from each experience, the more you'll grow. One of the most valuable lessons Musashi left behind was this: don't be afraid to fail, but also, don't be afraid to get better. Every time you take a step, whether it's a step forward or a step back, you are building your own experience. And with that experience comes wisdom, the kind that can't be learned from books or theory alone. It's the kind that only comes from real action, real challenges, and real life. Musashi didn't just want to fight, he wanted to understand the art of fighting. And that understanding came not just from his successes, but from his failures too. He made mistakes, just like everyone else. The difference was that he was willing to look at those mistakes, learn from them, and apply those lessons to become better. That's how growth happens. You pick yourself up, you dust yourself off, and you take the knowledge you've gained into the next phase of the journey. And here's the thing, it's not always going to be obvious what you've learned at first. Sometimes, it takes time for those lessons to sink in. But with patience and reflection, you'll start to see the bigger picture. You'll start to notice how every experience fits into the puzzle of your life, helping you refine your approach, sharpen your strategy, and move forward with more clarity. So, the next time something doesn't go the way you planned, don't get discouraged. Don't let it stop you. Instead, ask yourself, what can I learn from this? How can I take this experience and turn it into something that will make me better, stronger, and more prepared for what's ahead? That's the mindset Musashi embodied, and it's the mindset that will move you closer to your goals, no matter how messy the journey gets. Number 8, adapt to change. Adapting to change isn't just a nice idea, it's an essential skill that can make or break you. The world is in a constant state of flux, and if you don't learn to roll with the punches, you'll find yourself stuck, paralyzed by overthinking. Musashi, in his legendary career, wasn't someone who held onto old methods for the sake of comfort. He was all about change, about recognizing that nothing stays the same, and that true mastery comes from adapting to whatever is thrown your way. You see, overthinking often stems from a place of fear. Fear of making the wrong decision, fear of the unknown, or fear of losing control. When we're scared, our instinct is to cling to what's familiar. We think that if we just stay in the same place, if we just keep doing what we've always done, we'll be safe. But the truth is, that's one of the biggest traps we can fall into. Musashi understood that true safety doesn't come from avoiding change, it comes from embracing it. He knew that the world around him was unpredictable, that the landscape could shift at any moment, and that in order to survive and thrive, he had to be able to adapt without hesitation. Now, I'm not saying you should abandon your plans the moment things feel uncertain. It's not about jumping from one idea to the next at the slightest inconvenience. But what Musashi teaches us is that clinging to the same approach in the face of changing circumstances can make us stagnant. Overthinking flourishes in environments where we're too attached to a specific outcome. When things don't go according to plan, we spin our wheels trying to force things back into the mold we're comfortable with. This is where the real damage happens, the stress, the hesitation, the analysis paralysis. Musashi, on the other hand, was constantly assessing his surroundings. He was always watching for changes in his environment and adjusting his strategy accordingly. It didn't matter if his initial plan was working or not. If something changed, he changed with it. The key takeaway here? Flexibility. The ability to pivot when things don't go as expected, to recognize when it's time to shift gears and approach a challenge from a different angle. Let's talk about the mindset Musashi had when it came to change. It wasn't just about reacting, it was about proactively preparing for it. In his world, battles could change in the blink of an eye. He knew that to be successful, he had to be so deeply connected to his surroundings that he could anticipate shifts before they even happened. This is something we can all learn from. If you want to stop overthinking, you have to get comfortable with the idea that change is inevitable. It's not something to fear or avoid, but something to embrace. When you realize that change is part of the process, it becomes easier to let go of the need to control everything and just start moving. But how do you apply this in your own life? Start by getting curious. Don't be afraid to step into situations that are unfamiliar or uncomfortable. Instead of overthinking what could go wrong, focus on what you can learn from each new experience. The more you expose yourself to change, the more you'll realize that it's not as threatening as it seems. In fact, it can be exciting. It's all about developing a mindset where adaptability becomes second nature, where you expect change and thrive in it. This doesn't mean being reckless or abandoning structure altogether. Adaptability isn't about throwing everything to the wind. It's about recognizing when your current approach isn't working and having the courage to try something different. Musashi didn't just throw his sword around randomly. He understood his environment, assessed the situation, and then adapted his style to meet the moment. You don't need to have all the answers up front. What you need is the willingness to pivot, to move with the rhythm of your circumstances instead of fighting against them. The more you embrace this approach, the more you'll see how overthinking starts to lose its grip on you. Instead of obsessing over a single, perfect course of action, you'll develop a mindset where you're ready to respond to whatever comes your way. You'll stop getting paralyzed by potential obstacles, and instead, you'll see them as opportunities to grow, adjust, and learn. The beauty of adapting to change is that it frees you from the chains of indecision. When you're constantly looking for the perfect, unchanging plan, you're stuck in a loop of uncertainty. But when you shift your focus to adaptability, you give yourself the freedom to act, knowing that if something goes wrong, you can adjust and keep moving. Musashi wasn't afraid of change, he thrived in it. And so can you. Number 9, be present in the moment. Being present in the moment is one of those things that sounds simple, right? Like, just focus on what's happening right now. But if it were truly that easy, we wouldn't find ourselves lost in thoughts of the past or caught up in worries about the future. Musashi, however, understood the power of living fully in the present. He didn't waste time pondering every possible outcome or getting tangled in what could go wrong. He was there, fully immersed in the task at hand, with no distractions clouding his mind. When you stop overthinking and focus on the present, you tap into something deep. It's a kind of clarity that cuts through the mental fog, leaving you with nothing but the task in front of you. Musashi's approach wasn't about perfection, it was about pure presence. He didn't concern himself with what was happening elsewhere or what would happen next. He was absorbed in the now, and in doing so, he performed at his highest level. So how can we start embracing this kind of presence in our own lives, especially when the world is so full of noise and distractions? Well, let's start by realizing that the mind has this funny way of running wild. When we overthink, we're not in the moment anymore. We're in our heads, trying to predict every little twist and turn that might come up, often imagining scenarios that never even happen. Musashi would tell you, don't waste time on what might be or what was. Focus on what is. The thing is, Being present isn't about pushing away those thoughts or pretending they don't exist. It's about acknowledging them, then choosing to let them float by. Imagine you're sitting in a room, and outside the window, you see a storm. You're aware of it, but you don't let it consume your attention. Instead, you stay focused on what's in front of you. You stay centered in the task you're working on, no matter what else is going on around you. It's like an inner calm amidst the chaos. And here's where Musashi's wisdom shines. Presence isn't just about clearing your mind. It's about committing to the moment with everything you've got. You don't need to be perfect, and you don't need to have everything figured out. Just be there. Whether it's the way you're breathing, the movements of your body, or the thoughts running through your mind, don't fight them, don't chase them, just let them come and go. By being fully in the moment, you let go of the tension of trying to control every outcome. You stop holding yourself back by worrying about what could happen and instead trust in your ability to handle what's right in front of you. Imagine this, the act of doing becomes so much clearer when you stop overthinking. Musashi would have never allowed himself to be distracted by imagined threats or concerns about the future. He trusted that his presence and his focused mind were the tools he needed to succeed. When you're truly present, the world doesn't seem as overwhelming. Instead of being paralyzed by the endless possibilities, you engage directly with what's happening now, and that's where the power lies. One thing to keep in mind is that being present doesn't mean you're ignoring the past or future. It means you're giving them the proper place they deserve. The past has already happened. The future is still to come. Musashi understood that what mattered was the action he was taking right at this very moment. And each action was informed by the wisdom he had gained from his experiences. His presence didn't mean being unaware of the bigger picture, it just meant that his focus was rooted in what he could do now, not what was out of his control. And let's be real, being present is a muscle you have to build. It doesn't come overnight. There will be times when your mind wanders, and you'll catch yourself overthinking. But that's okay. The point is, you notice it and come back to the moment. It's that constant shift from distraction to focus that strengthens your ability to be fully present. When you stop overthinking, you free yourself from the mental weight that keeps you stuck. You stop second-guessing every decision and simply act. You let go of the need for everything to be perfect. The present moment is where all of life happens, right here, right now. And that's where you need to be, if you want to get out of your head and start living the life you've been imagining. Musashi knew this. The true battle isn't fought in the past or the future. It's fought in the present, with every action, every breath, every moment. That's where your power lies. So stop overthinking. Step into the moment. And take action. Number 10, let go of fear. Let's be honest for a second, fear is a sneaky thing. It creeps up on you, wraps around your thoughts, and suddenly, you're frozen in place. You start thinking about all the ways things could go wrong, all the ways you might fail, and before you know it, you've talked yourself out of doing anything at all. That's the trick fear plays on you. It makes you believe that staying still is safer than taking action. But here's the truth, fear will always be there. What matters is how you handle it. And Musashi? He was a master at letting go of fear in the heat of battle, and if you can learn to do the same, it will completely change the way you approach life. Fear isn't some force that's outside of you. It's not this external, monstrous thing lurking around the corner, waiting to pounce. Fear is inside you. It's a thought. It's a story your mind tells you about what might happen. The problem is, you start to believe that story. You start to think that if you take that leap, you're going to fall. And what if you fail? What if you embarrass yourself? These thoughts spiral, and suddenly, you're stuck. You're paralyzed by what could happen instead of what is happening right now. Musashi knew that fear was a companion on every journey, not something to avoid. It's just part of being human. But he didn't let it control him. In the face of uncertainty, he took action. Because in his mind, the cost of inaction was far greater than any potential failure. Fear wants you to stay small. It wants you to play it safe, to stay in your comfort zone. But playing it safe doesn't move you forward. It doesn't get you closer to your goals. Fear might feel like a protective force, but in reality, it's holding you back. Think about it this way: fear often feeds off the unknown. It thrives on uncertainty. When you're unsure about how things will play out, your mind starts to imagine the worst-case scenarios, and fear amplifies those imagined outcomes. But here's the catch: you don't actually know what will happen. You can guess, you can predict, but you can never truly know. Musashi understood this. He didn't have the luxury of knowing exactly how his battles would unfold, but he acted anyway. His strength wasn't in knowing the future, it was in the ability to face fear head-on and move forward, regardless. The key to letting go of fear is understanding that fear doesn't make you weak. It doesn't mean you're incapable. In fact, fear can actually be a sign that you're pushing your limits, that you're stepping into unknown territory. Musashi didn't fear the unknown, he embraced it. He saw it as an opportunity to learn, to adapt, to grow. And that's the mindset you need to adopt too. When you feel that familiar tug of fear, don't see it as a sign to retreat. See it as a sign to lean in, to move forward, to take that step. Letting go of fear doesn't mean ignoring it. It means acknowledging it, understanding that it's there, but not allowing it to dictate your actions. You recognize it for what it is, a thought, a feeling, not a fact. And once you see it for what it is, you can make the conscious decision to move past it. It's about shifting your focus away from the what-ifs and directing it toward what's actually in front of you. It's easy to overthink, to imagine every possible outcome, and to get stuck in this loop of worry. But Musashi would tell you that none of that matters unless you act. Fear can only control you if you let it. It thrives on hesitation. The more you delay, the more you give in to its influence. But if you take immediate action, you take the power away from fear. Here's another thing: fear often comes from a place of self-doubt. It's that voice in your head telling you that you're not good enough, that you're not ready, that you'll never succeed. But Musashi didn't wait for permission to act. He didn't wait for external validation or some magical sign that everything was aligned. He trusted his instincts, trusted his training, and he acted. He understood that confidence wasn't about being fearless, it was about moving forward despite the fear. So, how do you let go of fear? You face it. You take that first step, even if your hands are shaking. You move forward, not because you're sure of the outcome, but because you trust that the process of action will teach you what you need to know. Fear will never completely disappear. But once you stop letting it control your decisions, once you decide that the cost of inaction is too high, you'll find that you can handle it. You'll find that, just like Musashi, you're capable of navigating fear and still moving toward your goals. Thanks for watching. If you're ready to stop overthinking and start taking action like Musashi, hit that like button and subscribe to Modern Stoic for more actionable strategies. Remember, the key to success isn't in endless planning, but in the courage to act. Drop a comment below on which Musashi strategy you're going to implement today. And don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you never miss a video. Keep moving forward, stay disciplined, and as Musashi said, do not fear death. See you in the next one.